2, 1. And we're streaming. And we're streaming. And we're streaming. Here we go. And we're streaming. And we're streaming. And we're streaming. Don't you know? How you guys all doing out there? Oh, man. What a terrible day, honestly. Not a terrible day. Like, I shouldn't say a terrible day, but just a rainy, rainy day. Like a rainy, rainy day. Getsu, good to see you. You're the first one in. Seraphim. Yeah, early stream by like 5 minutes. Yeah, I was literally... It's a huge rainy day today. I'm like looking out my window and it's just rainy, 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 rainy. So I thought to myself, why not get started a little early today, eh? Why not? I sometimes stream late, so why not start early, right? Things are just kind of drifting along, which kind of sucks because I was hoping to get down to the beach today. I was hoping today was going to be a good, like, go outside day, you know, but it's classic spring weather, right? And as always, the days that I'm working are beautiful and gorgeous, and people are out and having a lovely life, and the days where I'm not working, right? The days where I'm not working, where I have off, rainy, clouded over, terrible, right? That's how it goes. So I just thought, you know, I'm sitting here just sort of tooling around, chatting with some people, lovely people. So I thought, let's get it started. Let's get it started. Yeah. Let's get it started. Hey. For those of you on TikTok, you can't see what I've got up on the screen for YouTube. It's Farah, whatever your name is, bud, I'm not just going to randomly talk to you, okay? I end up talking to a lot of Nazis, and so I have a very much, like, I don't just, like, randomly talk to people because I end up talking to too many Nazis. If you do want to ask me questions and talk to me directly, just go over to YouTube. It's right there. It's in the description, right? Have a chat with me. Have a talk with me. Ask me questions. I've been trying to get better at responding to TikTok. But if you're on YouTube, that's where I actually talk to people a little bit more, with a little bit more ease and a little bit easier, because I don't like talking to Nazis. It's as simple as that, right? When you call yourself the Canadian commie, when you live in a far-right society, and our society is far-right, like it's an extremist far-right, like if you're... hence the screen, right, that I'm looking at. They lied. The U.S. empire is an empire of lies. In 1999, they lied about Yugoslavia. 2003, they lied about Iraq. 2011, they lied about Libya. 2018, they lied about Syria. And we live in a society that has absolutely no trouble. The ruling class of the society has absolutely no trouble whatsoever lying to murder millions of people to steal their resources, right? Talking about extremists while wearing Scooby-Doo? What are you talking about? How is Scooby-Doo extremist? Like, unless, whatever, dude. People say the weirdest shit. We've even got some Ronnie McNutt garbage going on. I cannot believe the staying power of this Ronnie McNutt thing, man. It blows me away. It's been 6 months. Has it been 6 months? It's been a long time. At least 3 months since Ronnie McNutt committed suicide on stream, and people still bring it up. It's wild. John Cottrell, good to see you, bud. Is it wrong for me to wish my sister's grifter company fails and she loses her job? I mean, one hopes that you think well of your family and that you hope that they do well, but I don't know the situation, so I can't give you a yes or no on this, John. Like, I do think that sometimes you're looking at something and you think to yourself, this is a bad situation that this person needs to get out of, and sometimes the thing that gets people out of those bad situations is a bad thing happening. And, like, so a person is willing to tolerate just like a certain degree of negativity in their life, or a certain degree, like things are bad at their job, or things are like not quite, but they're still sort of tenable. So you're sort of going through your life with this kind of like grumbling, like because you don't want to try to find something better. You don't think that you can find something better, and what you need is just, you need things to get a little bit worse. You need things to get a little bit worse. And unless your sister's a piece of shit, then whatever, dude. Then whatever, right? If your sister's a bad person, then whatever. Today's stream is one of those streams where I feel like we've got a series of articles that really show you in a very straightforward, very blatant kind of way how capitalism is a total farce and how the whole thing is a complete and total grift. It all surrounds what's going on in Canada today. Not today, but what has been going on with Canada in the grocery store grift, what I have come to call, and this is another thing, John, like your sister's grifter company. So every company, like every capitalist company is a grifting company by this point. Like none of them are actually based on principles of like trying to help anybody. Like that's kind of a secondary ancillary thing. And there's no like, who are these people? Who are these companies that are actually like providing a service? What do I think of the Taiwan situation and how will that pan out? Big question, Getsu. That's a big, big question. So let's start with what's patently obvious. Since the 1960s and Nixon, even the United States acknowledged that Taiwan was part of China, that China has been saying one country, two systems since then, that the only reason why Taiwan was not taken over by Mao was because of American interference during that period of time, that the Chinese imperialists and the Chinese ruling class that Mao was fighting against fled to Taiwan, which was where the ruling class had their palaces. This is kind of classic behavior, and the same thing's going to happen with the American empire, right? That the American ruling classes are going to abandon America in favor of going to islands that we can't get to. Uh-oh. Oh, my live access was removed for bullying and harassment. I definitely am going to appeal that. Yeah. That's absolutely wrong. Okay. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Your live access has been suspended for violating our bullying and harassment. We don't allow statements intended to mock, humiliate, embarrass, intimidate, or hurt an individual. Wow, they should take a look at my at the TikTok chat. That's hilarious, man. TikTok's like this, man. Like this, yeah, calling Nazis is bullying. That's exactly right, John. If you call a Nazi, you're a bully. That's the trouble with all of these apps and all of this kind of stuff, right? Nazis, right? Nazis will do that. Like Nazis come onto these platforms and they're like, a person saying that people should have human rights and calling me a Nazi for being a Nazi. Oh, bullying and harassment. And the algorithm is designed to protect them, right? Like the algorithm is designed by Nazis, and what do you think this whole free speech thing that's going on around this whole free speech thing that's going on around oh, sorry guys, 1 second. Oh, Milo, I didn't realize you were so wet. Sorry guys, 1 second. Oh, Milo. I took my little dog out so he could have a pee right before the stream, and I didn't realize it was so wet. Oh my goodness, let's dry you off, buddy. Oh goodness. Oh goodness, you're so wet. I've had this happen before with TikTok, right? TikTok will do that kind of thing because I'm of the opinion that the by policy, I believe that these algorithms are designed to protect Nazis. By policy, I think that that's what they're doing. And if a Nazi comes into your stream and you call them a Nazi, then you're the one that gets punished, and they just get to walk away, right? Simple as that. And you know, if you're somebody who says, yeah, people should have food and shelter, then you're an extremist. You're the same as a genocidal maniac, right? That's what, like, the President of the United States says this. Justin Trudeau says this, right? Serious people in the society make this statement that if you are saying we should purge the society and round up minorities and execute them, you are the same as somebody saying we should have universal health care. That those two things are the same, right? If you're saying the trouble is we have systemic problems that need to be addressed, that's the same as wanting to murder the Jews. As far as TikTok is concerned, as far as any of these, as far as the president is concerned, as far as Justin Trudeau is concerned, right? And that's a shame because somebody actually was asking a cogent question, a smart question, on TikTok about the situation with China and Taiwan. So I guess I'll just wrap that up just in case, right? I kind of hit it, right? That Taiwan is part of China. The United States is going to take advantage of the xenophobia and general ignorance of the American people, and they're going to start a war just like they did in Ukraine, right? It's very serious. Yeah, someone clutched some serious pearls on TikTok for sure. Cotton, good to see you. Oh yeah, dig it. Is Milo not being a whiny jabroni today? You just wait. Just wait. Yeah, very normal. Exactly. Looking to Z. Good to see you, by the way, bud. John, you think homeless people should have shelter and healthcare and education should be taxpayer provided? But what about the Holodomor? Yeah, exactly. And what's so funny is that that's not even satire. Like, that's not even satirical. That, like, if you stand up and you're like, hey, there's all these empty houses and we have homeless people, could we maybe put this together? It's literally like, but a genocide that didn't really happen, or wasn't a genocide, right? Like, if we do that, then a famine will take over. Like, that is actually and genuinely the conversation that we're having. It's amazing. Like, it's amazing how stupid we are as a people. And really, I think the thing that's actually happening in the society is that no one on the left is willing to stand up to the brazenness of the right. That the right is so psychopathic and full of such enormous grifters that no one's willing to stand up and just call them out for what they are. Because there's this sort of sense of politeness. Well, it wouldn't do to call Ben Shapiro a psychopath, even though he obviously is. Like, just like a little weird Nazi who's obviously interested in purging the society of minority groups. Like, he constantly says so. Like, he's constantly sending out tweets that are obviously racist and xenophobic. Like, you don't need to interpret it. And my favorite thing for Ben Shapiro is on his own website, he has this little section where he says, these are positions that I used to hold that I don't hold anymore. And he does this as if it's to maintain intellectual credibility, when what you are looking at is somebody who was raised a genocidal maniac coming to terms that with the reality that if he holds those genocidal positions, he will be rejected. And so Shapiro is constantly in this state of admitting to you that he's a psychopath, just admitting the things that he's no longer willing to overtly say. So, I no longer say that we should purge the Arabs in public. And that's supposed to make him intellectually credible. As opposed to making us go, you used to think that you should be purging Arabs from the society? Bro, what, like, I can't think of a better way to just tell people, yeah, don't pay any attention to anything I say. I think this is growth. Like, yeah, Jay Pringle, Scam America, a failed state, a failed society, and run by a failed corrupt government, for sure. Like, just absolutely. There's nothing left to it. The Anarchist, John, I passed along your Idiocracy Theory today from last week, and it felt so good. Yeah, that's a great theory. I feel like I should go to, like, open mic comedy nights and say this. Because I think it's a great idea. That the president from the movie Idiocracy is smarter than all presidents we've ever had. Right? Well, not ever, but like in the last 5 presidents, like Trump, certainly, Biden, Obama, Clinton, Bush, right? Like Camacho, Mountain Dew is a smarter president because he at least acknowledged that there was a problem. He sought to resolve that problem.
He knew he needed to respond rationally to the electorate, right? He found the individual who he thought could solve the problem, and then in fact that individual did solve the problem. So unlike the last 5 presidents at least that we've had in America, here's a president who actually saw that there was a problem and then solved that problem, making him far smarter than even Obama, right? Even drone man Obama, right? Like, so we're, I hope that spreads. I hope people start to realize how desperately stupid we are as a people. Because, like, the fictional presidents who are supposed to be the stupid presidents are smarter than our presidents. Compton says, they are the same, John. Have you considered the genocide of landlord real estate portfolios? Checkmate, Compton. You got me. Ligon to Z, the separatist elements in Taiwan are mostly the DPP, who are literal descendants of Japanese collaborators. East Asia's equivalent of Nazi collaborators. Yeah, that, like, when America moves in, those are the people who they'll arm. Right? That's what they always do. Like, that's what they always do. So it's going to be the same story, that, like, America's going to wander in and be like, oh, hey, where's the Nazis? We got to make sure that we maximize the profits of Nazis, because that's who we always fund, is Nazis. And so we'll just do that here too. It's not different. Isaac, good to see you, bud. Narco Rubio said that when the dollar lost its hegemony, the sanctions will no longer work. We refer to him as Narco in Spanish. Hilarious. Yeah, Rubio did say that. Like, it is starting to creep in. Like, people are starting to recognize the truth of what's going to happen, at least politically. Like, at least some people are starting to acknowledge it, but they're not going to do anything about it. Like, the only thing the ruling class is going to do about it is protect their own assets. They don't give a shit if the mass of the workers get totaled over it. Like, they don't care. They don't operate for the benefit of the people, so why should they give a shit at all? And the fact that they're saying it out loud tells you that they know, they just don't care to do anything about it. Ligon to Z, Tsai Ing-wen's father was a mechanic who helped repair IJA warplanes, the same warplanes that bombed Shanghai. Yeah, of course. The KMT is infinitely better than the DPP. At least they are still true Chinese. Well, I mean, for me, like, what claim has America to Taiwan? Right? Like, what the fuck is that? And the idea that Taiwan is going to be like, yeah, we're independent. Yeah, we're independently deciding to allow an American military base here. Independently. Like, come on. You got to be a complete rube to think that this is the case. So, the vast majority of Americans. Mountain Dew Camacho is smarter than the billionaires. Yeah, he knew there was a problem, didn't know how to solve it, but recognized there was a problem. Yeah, billionaires don't even see a problem. And billionaires make the problem worse. Right? Like, you take a look at what the Gates Foundation has done. That they're constantly spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to create problems. Right? And so if you want to believe that a place like the Gates Foundation is actually interested in solving problems, well, they fail every time. Like, they're very, very stupid. And stupider than Mountain Dew Camacho by a lot. Yeah, the DPP are Democratic Progressive. Is that just a CIA front to deflect from their true nature? At the end of the day, John, it's going to come down to what the people of Taiwan want. And that's where it gets pretty dangerous, because people of Taiwan are just as susceptible to CIA propaganda as anybody else. And we've seen over the last couple of decades an increase of this idea that Taiwan should be an independent nation, which it's such a like, in a total vacuum where, like, the only things that exist are China and Taiwan, you can stand there and say, like, I guess in theory, sure, I support this idea. Like, why shouldn't Taiwan be an independent state? Sure. But America exists. Like, tough shit. Like, tough shit. No country in their right mind would allow America to put a military base on an unsinkable battle cruiser off their coast. Like, you'd have to absolutely be a raving, foaming at the mouth Nazi psychopath to think that that's acceptable. And so, again, the majority of Americans. Clinton, you know what's super scary? Apparently Japan is trying to get more involved with NATO directly. Yeah. Like, it's stupidity. Like, Finland joined NATO recently. Their application went through. right? So it's just stupidity at this point. That there's no one in the ruling class in any of the Western worlds or their surrogates who are thinking clearly, who are actually thinking through the consequences of their actions, who are actually thinking through, like, it really is like these guys are looking at a video game screen being like, this part's not blue. This is blue, and this part's not blue. So we gotta make this part blue. And then when that part's blue, it'll be better. Because we're the protagonists. We're the best. We've got the manifest destiny. And we've got the right of kings to make the whole map blue. Because liberal democracy is the way to rule the world. And if you don't like liberal democracy, then you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. And if you're the bad guy, then we gotta get the tanks and get the things, and we can fund Nazis, and that's okay because it's fine to fund Nazis because the ends justifies the means. It doesn't make us Nazis. It just means that we're funding Nazis, and that's fine because they're red and we're blue, and that's what matters. We gotta make the map blue. Like I really do think they're like that. Like, I think that's the level of intellect that they're on. Like, these people are looking at guys like Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and being like, wow, these people are intellectuals. Like, wow, I can't believe how smart these people are. Like, oh man, we've really got to listen to what these guys have to say because they're so super smart. As opposed to being just dim-witted. Like, they know how to say big words, so they are smart. They know how to speak quickly, and so they are smart. Like, these people are dimwits, and yet they're considered the high-level echelon of our society. It's just brutal to watch. Good to see you, Anemone. I think the first people to fight for NATO should be the progressive neocons. If you're progressive and you celebrate NATO, you should be obligated to fight for it, yeah? But come on, guys, let's be real. Let's be real about this. Like, let's be absolutely real about this. Right? According to the Pentagon, right? The beating heart of the psychopath empire, right? The literal Sauron's eye, that they literally have made like a dark heart shaped with like a Hellgate portal in the middle of it. Like, we all know how this is going to go, right? Like, they're going to, what they're doing is they're building an AI. All of this is bullshit that I'm talking about, by the way. Don't take any of this seriously. They're making an AI so they can open up like a red portal Hellgate right in the center of the Pentagon, right? So that in the future, there'll be the Pentagon with the fucking Hellgate like right in the middle of it. You know what I'm talking about? Like, there'll be a big red portal right here. This is a good picture to show you. Right here. Right? A ring of power, exactly. And like orcs and demons will start pouring out of it. Which is the goal, right, of the whole thing, is to make sure that that's the reason why they're letting climate change come through and desertifying everything and spreading wildfire, because they want this place to be more accommodating for their demon masters, right? So they're going to open the Hellgate right there, and the Dark Lord Lucifer, Slanesh, yeah, Subcrom, yeah, great, will step through, and they'll all be like, oh, whoa, right? I guess it's the whole point. It's the whole goal of the first thing. But like, what's so fucking stupid about these dim-witted dummies is 77% of young Americans too fat, mentally ill, on drugs, and more to join the military, Pentagon Study shows. So the people who are trying to summon like the Dark Lord Sauron or whatever are also saying, yeah, like only 23% of young Americans, only 23% of young Americans would be fit to actually join in to the military. So like, take the small population of America in the first place. Like, America's population is relatively small and compared to like China's. Take the small population and then like cut it in far more than half. Literally, these people are not going to enlist. Like, you're not going to see a voluntary enlistment of these people. And if you try to do a draft, well, 77% of them won't make it. Right? You're going to wage a war against China? You think that China, you think 77% of Chinese people are too fat or mentally ill or on drugs? You think the Chinese have this problem? Right? Like the Chinese are very well aware. Like the major difference between what's going on between America and China at this moment is that the Chinese are like, the Americans are going to wage a war on us. We have to be ready. We have to be prepared. We have to get our children prepared for this inevitability of this demon, this obvious, like, we're trying to summon the Dark Lord Nurgle or something, right, into reality. We got to prepare for these demons, right, to come, and we've got to get everybody intelligent, smart, got to get them prepared, right? And in America, it's like, oh, you're wearing makeup. You're wearing nail polish, so you're gay. Like, this is the conversation that we're having in America. Like, we're a profoundly unserious people. We're not prepared, and like, we're just arrogant. We just arrogantly believe that, like, yeah, we'll go to war, we'll win because we always win. Every time we go to war, we're gonna go in there and America them. And when they're gonna wave the white flag. Even though America's lost every single war it's fought, like, what's a war America's won? Like, they're so used to fighting people who don't have standing armies or navies or anything. And we're all just gonna go in there and be like, China's gonna mop us up. Like, China's gonna dunk on us. Yeah, dude, Doom was a cautionary tale. Abso-fucking-lutely. And, like, it is actually true, because, like, the narrative, especially of the new Doom, because there was really no narrative of the original Doom. The original Doom was straight up just like, Space Marine fighting demons from hell. And you're just like, okay. The new Doom is like, a corporation started to harness the power of hell for, quote-unquote, the good of humanity. That's the new narrative. And it's like, it's what's happening. We're constantly saying to ourselves, what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing that's obviously destroying us and we're going to use it for the good of humanity. And it completely backfires every time. It's a total backfire, constantly. I couldn't play the new Doom, man. I started to play the new Doom and I was just like, it was too much for me, you know? It was just like constant, like, and you're just like, and I don't think it was the like shooting and the moving and shooting part. It was like the glory kills, that like every single time you had to like tear something off and put, and just gruesome. It was too gruesome for me. I'm just like, I don't know that I care to see this every single time. It's just brutal. I couldn't do it. China could have dealt the coup de grace against the U.S. at any moment. China holds a lot of U.S. debt. Imagine when they sell them. Well, China is starting to sell that debt. It's not doing it like all at once, because a big problem that China is looking at is that nobody wants it, right? So China, like, there's been a very fast decline in U.S. treasuries, but they can't sell it fast enough because nobody wants it. Everybody knows that it's a toxic asset now. Yep, Saudi Arabia buying gas from Russia, asked France that they pay them in the yuan if they get it. Of course, France agrees. Like, it's happening, guys. Like, it's happening. And it is coming, where the US dollar is going to plummet. I've been seeing some people saying it could be August, because that August is actually like the end of year for a lot of organizations, and that August is going to roll around and they're going to recalibrate and reconfigure and take, the 0.2 seconds that capitalists take to actually plan anything, and they're all going to recognize that, like, oh yeah, nobody wants dollars, and that's just going to make the whole thing go in a moment. And so August is the one to look out for. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I've been hearing enough about it to think that something could happen around that period of time. U.S. put sanctions on Russia, capping the cost at $60, except for Japan because it gets its fuel from Russia. Japan gets a waiver. Yeah, it's all stupid. Yeah. There's going to be a lot more waivers. For sure. For sure. Like, nobody's going to give a shit about these sanctions. Like, it's crazy. Uh-oh, what's the news about GPT-5? So, I'm going to show these series of articles, just in case anybody out there listening, if any like the TikTok kids manage to wander in, if anybody wanders in, good opportunity, by the way, to say please like, share, and subscribe the stream, guys. Please hit the like button, please hit the share button, do all the bells, do all the whistles. We are fighting the algorithm. Consider donating, okay? If you've got $1 jangling around in that pocket, make sure you donate it. And if you're only doing 2, maybe make it, or if you're only doing 1, maybe make it 2, right? Thank you so much for Patreons who are already donating. I appreciate each and every one of you. So, yeah, how is this place so cartoonish? I'm about to tell you, looking to Z. So the Loblaws Board says that Galen Weston is underpaid and boosts his compensation. Huh? Galen Weston's the second wealthiest man in Canada. And at the same time that that's happening, from City News, Toronto's Daily Bread Food Bank sees highest demand ever. Literally, you can't make this up, guys. You cannot make this up. That one of the largest food banks says Toronto is in the midst of a food insecurity crisis. The Daily Bread Food Bank saw more visits last month than it ever has before, saying visits have quadrupled since the COVID-19 pandemic. We are at a breaking point and need action now, said CEO Neil Hetherington in a statement. This is not something that can be outsourced to charities. It is the government's duty to ensure that every person in this city, in this country, can realize their right to food. Hetherington spoke at a news conference Tuesday morning in Etobicoke, discussing the rising numbers and asking the province and federal government to help address the crisis. The food bank saw nearly 270,000 visits in March, which it says is the highest number in its 40-year history. It compares to 65,000 clients per month pre-pandemic. I really think that this sentence is worth saying again. The food bank saw nearly 270,000 visits in March, which it says is the highest number in its 40-year history, which compares to 65,000 clients per month pre-pandemic. 4 times higher. 4 times higher. Pre-pandemic, the number is 65,000, already way too high. 65,000 visits per month, way too high. 270,000 visits post-pandemic. Capitalism has failed. And while that is going on, while that is happening, Loblaws Board says Galen Weston is underpaid and boosts his compensation. These people should be taxed to the teeth. These people should have their assets removed. That Loblaws should absolutely be nationalized at this stage in the game. To say anything else is to just be an embarrassing person. That Galen Weston is obviously not capable of doing the job. They're obviously not interested in doing the job. And how do we know? Because they're not actually providing the service. 4 times the amount of people are going to food banks. 4 times. In the space of 5 years. This is a critical disaster. And of course, the Beaverton, absolutely nailing it. Galen Weston defends $3 million raise by asking, have you seen how expensive stuff is getting lately? Yeah, I was told this is what communism does. How is food banks overburdened in capitalism? What the hell, yeah? Like, I guess food banks don't count as food lines. Like, they don't count as bread lines, right? Food banks aren't bread lines, right? They're somehow different. Like, this person should have no power in the society whatsoever. 0%. Literally zero. Like, no one should care what this person says. No one should care what this person thinks. This person should have no power or authority in the society at all. And the idea that he does is an absurdism. This guy was born into a food empire and was handed $1 billion for being born to the right person. And yet we're supposed to buy into this idea that this is a meritocracy. If you're stupid, you can believe it. Like, if you're stupid, you can believe it. But if you aren't successful in capitalism, then it must be your fault and you deserve to rot in poverty. Duh. Yeah, exactly. Not much different than saying, if you get a disease, then God has struck you down. Right? It's pretty much the same sentence. Like, oh, you got a disease, so you must have affronted God somehow, so you deserve it, right? Oh, you're suffering in poverty, so you must have done something to deserve it. You offended the money gods. Yeah, someone thought this would humanize Galen. Yeah, it didn't, and they're the dumbest people alive. Yeah. Like, I remember when I was younger, I used to fall into this idea that, like, oh, there's a sinister underclass and they're all planning everything and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, these guys are way too dumb for this. Like, this alone, like, if Galen Weston was smart, like, if he had a brain in his head, he would absolutely be like, no, I'm not going to allow you to boost my compensation. I'm not going to take extra money. Like, literally this happens weeks after he has gone and been questioned by the House of Commons and has had people saying to him, like, hey, do you think that you're gouging people? Like, kind of looks like you're gouging people, Galen. And Galen has had to be, no, we're not gouging people. Of course we're not gouging people. Well, and the guy is taking $3 million. Well, you don't think $3 million would help somebody? Galen, do you need this money? What does Galen Weston need this money for? Like, what's Galen Weston's worth? Estimated net worth $8.7 billion. He's the third wealthiest in Canada and the 178th wealthiest in the world. What does this guy need an extra $3 million for? Can anybody tell me? What does this guy need an extra $3 million for? What the fuck is happening in the society that we are this dim-witted to actually say out loud, this guy deserves $3 million extra? He's already worth $8.7 billion. He's in the top 200 for the wealthiest people alive. Like, and they're so arrogant and detached from reality that they don't think there's going to be any kind of negative consequence for this. And it looks to me as though they're right. Doesn't seem like there is going to be a negative consequence for these guys. Doesn't look like the society is going to stand up and be like, excuse me? Doesn't look like anybody is actually going to be that interested in confronting these psychopaths, right? Capitalism is a gym where the original members kept getting rid of the lighter weights as they got stronger and demands new members of the gym to lift only the weights left, which are heaviest. Yeah, that seems to be a good analogy, right? Like, but of course, like, to really tighten that analogy, it's the owners of the gym that have done it, and they only allow the people that they own to lift the weights. The capitalists themselves don't lift the weights, right? They have their chattel slaves do that shit. And then, of course, pivoting over, majority of Canadians who don't own a home have given up. Your society's a total success, right? Everything's completely working. When you're taking a look at stats and numbers like this, 6 in 10 who don't own a home have completely given up. System's working. 7 in 10 say owning a home is only for the rich. Society completely working. Unchanged from a year ago. Yeah, no shit. 7 in 10 say interest rates have them sitting on the sidelines. System's completely working, guys. Everything's totally working here. The system of capital, complete success story. Complete success story. Despite a sizable drop in home prices, listen to how these losers report on this stuff, right? Despite a sizable drop. So housing prices have gone up like 300% in the last 10 years, right? But the sizable drop that they're talking about is literally a 10% dip. That this is how these losers report on this stuff, which is why the media is just full of total sycophants and complete losers. Because they completely front load you right away with total nonsense and bullshit, right? Despite a sizable drop in home prices. What are you talking about, sizable drop in home prices? What's this sizable drop you're talking about? Prices went up 300% and they went down, what, 15%? And we're all supposed to be like, oh, wow. Ugh. Despite a sizable drop in home prices over the last year and a slew of federal government measures aimed at housing affordability. Of course, the slew of federal government measures is literally, we're going to ban a practice no one was taking advantage of. We're going to get rid of foreign buyers. That'll do it. Because BlackRock doesn't have a Canadian division. Nobody's got, it's completely impossible for foreign billionaires to just open up a place in Canada and then have that Canadian place buy the property, right? We've done it. We got rid of the foreign buyers. But of course, like the media is, like the corporate media especially, is so full of sycophants and just dim-witted losers that we're supposed to actually buy into this. We're supposed to actually buy into this nonsense. Yeah, so despite all of this nonsense that didn't work, and despite the fact that the housing went down like 0.2%, a new poll suggests Canadians are no more encouraged about breaking into the housing market. Yeah, because most Canadians live in a place called reality, right? A place called reality that the media doesn't exist in. Like, if you work for Global News, you do not live in reality. You are purposefully paid on purpose to be detached from reality. That's your job, is to present a false narrative that is as detached from reality as possible. And I'm actually surprised that they're acknowledging reality exists at all. I'm surprised that they're even talking to people and being like, well, what do you think? Wow, these guys think that reality exists and that reality is a real place that we should all acknowledge. How interesting. Some 63% of Canadians who don't own a home have given up on ever owning one, according to the results of an Ipsos poll conducted exclusively for Global News published Wednesday. That figure is similar to a similar poll conducted a year earlier. The findings show that while 76% of respondents felt that owning a home was the best investment a person can make, nearly 7 in 10 say that home ownership is only for the rich. Younger generations, those aged 18 to 34, were most likely to agree that owning a home is a major accomplishment, but also that it was a privilege reserved for the wealthy. Wow, look at this. Global News admitting that reality exists. I'm shocked that they're even reporting on this, honestly. Sean Simpson, Ipsos Senior Vice President, tells Global News that Canadians are still upset about the state of Canada's housing market. There's a feeling out there that despite the fact that home ownership continues to be a good investment and people believe that you're better off financially if you own a home, something's holding them back. What could it be? What could the thing that is holding people back possibly be? Could it be that rich psychopaths are buying up the housing market, turning them into Airbnbs, or just hoarding them and keeping empty properties because they don't want to bother renting them out because it's an investment in the first place? Like, they're not renting it, they're not getting it to, and they're not bothering to bring it in as a rental property because they know, like, if you're a stockbroker, like if you're a stock market guy, like, you don't care to have a property and then have to bother buying, like, paying off a property firm to run it, and you don't want to dicker with any of that kind of, like, you literally want it so that you can sell it. Like, that's what you want it for. You're not interested in like, mitigating costs or any of that, because the thing that's going to mitigate the cost is selling it, right? Because you view it as a stock. You don't view it as a rental property. You view it as a stock. So you bought it at $100,000 and now it's going for $1 million. Wow, 10 times the amount. Great. Let's turn around. Let's sell. Let's go. Right? And many of them are just like, because things have gotten so fucking stupid, these guys no longer view houses as a commodity even. To them, this is a currency. That they own this amount of assets and houses and property, and so that these are currencies that they have. That they could turn around and just sell it to a bank if they needed the liquid capital, but they don't. They don't need the currency. They don't need the money. They don't need any of that kind of stuff. And in fact, they're never going to sell it to a bank like that, because what they'll do is they'll walk into a bank and say, hey, I have all this property. Can I get a loan? Right? And the bank will give them a loan. And if everything goes tits up, well, that's fine. The government will bail them out. Right? So we've built this society where if you're rich, you're just permanently rich. And the rich are buying up actual assets and throwing people in the streets about it. And now you have global news being like, oh, something's happening. We can't tell what's going on. I don't know what's going on. What do you think's going on? Oh, it must be a mystery. Oh, it's just human nature, you know. It's just the passing of nature. Like, there's no actual serious journalism happening in these institutions anymore. Like, that's over. Like, and the idea, let's see if they even bother. Let's see if they even bother. Home prices. Listen to this. Listen to this trash. This absolute garbage reporting coming out of... Who is this person writing this stupid shit? Is this just... Yeah, Craig Lord. How's that... What Craig Lord? Craig Lord. Home prices have declined significantly in the past year, with the Canadian Real Estate Association reporting a 19% decline from the highs of the pandemic in 2022, the same month this year. Yeah, 19%, guys. Housing prices went up 300%, but a 19% decline. Oh my God, that's what we should be reporting. We definitely should never ever tell anybody that housing has gone up 300%. That a 19% decline. Oh my God, guys. 19% decline. 19% decline. This is the thing that matters. Oh my God. More like cringe lord. Nice. But driving those declines, always about the declines, right? Oh, it's declined. Always normalizing the housing market, right? That's these guys' job. Their job is to normalize the situation. To pretend as though it's normal to have houses this expensive. To pretend like this is normal. And in fact, it's a good thing, because you're in a market where the market's declined, you know. It used to be 19% higher than this, right? So it's that ratchet theory, but not politically. It's economically now. And they're just trying to sucker gullible rubes into believing that, oh yeah, you just need to work harder and get a better job, you know. That's what you need to do. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And a lot of people fall for that because a lot of people are fucking stupid. Driving those declines and an overall cooling in the housing market has been a surge in the Bank of Canada's benchmark interest rate, which had raised mortgage rates and limited how much Canadians can afford to borrow. The central bank has adopted a conditional pause to rate hikes after raising its policy rate to 4.5% from the rock bottom lows that fueled a flurry of housing activity in the first 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. I love it. Literally saying... fueled a flurry of housing activity. Well, and what happened? What did that flurry of housing activity do? Did it increase the price of houses by 300%? Can't mention that. Some 71% of respondents to the survey had said high interest rates were keeping them on the sidelines. 3 in 10 said they believed now was a good time for a first home purchase. So 30% of the society are detached. Right? They're basically just inheritors of massive wealth, right? So that's good. At least 30% of the society is actually thinks they can get a house. Good for them. Despite the fact that we've had a softening of housing prices over the last year, and that interest rate increases have leveled and perhaps going to be hopefully going down soon, attitudes have not changed. Yeah, no shit. Because people live in reality. Yeah, lack of impact from government measures. No shit. But you mean the doing nothing did nothing? Holy shit. Last year's federal budget dedicated a number of announcements towards improving housing affordability, though experts say the impact of these items has either been muted, hard to measure, or hasn't come into effect yet. The tax-free First Home Savings Account came into effect as of April 1st, but most banks and financial institutions who spoke to Global News said they wouldn't be ready to offer the accounts to Canadians by that date. Yeah, because that's not what banks are doing. Like, banks are here to make sure that we get pilfered, right? They want to go take bets on crypto and then get bailed out. Like, that's what the banks are doing. The Liberal government also hasn't offered a timeline for when it will roll out a possible homebuyer's Bill of Rights, which it floated could have measures including an end to blind bidding in the real estate market. Yeah, because they're lying, right? This is what liberals do. They step out in front of you and they say, oh, this is a great idea, isn't it? Vote for us. And then when you vote for them, you might go, hey, what about that idea? And they'll go, excuse me? Oh yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, it's in committee. Yeah, we've got a committee that's going to come up with a plan, and then we'll make a committee to plan on that committee, and then the committee will committee the committee, and then committee, and it'll just stay in committee for 10 decades until finally everybody's just fucking homeless because they don't give a fuck. They're not interested. Rishi Sondhi, a TD Bank economist who covers Canada's housing market, says the temporary ban on foreign buyers would have a reduced impact in Ontario and British Columbia, where most people live, where earlier introductions of a tax on this segment likely shook out the demand here. Like, I absolutely love how stupid Craig is. That like, at no point does anybody just go, if foreign buyers are a problem, they'll just open up a Canadian office and it's done. Like, it's over. It's hard to measure the impact of new tax rules targeting home flippers due to a lack of data on the phenomenon. Yeah, you can't say there's a problem if you don't actually look at it. Whether federal government measures are having an impact on Canada's housing market or not, Ottawa's efforts are not translating to a substantial boost in confidence among buyers. No shit. The Ipsos polls only show 27% of Canadians feel the federal government is doing enough. So 27% of Canadians are delusional, right? Like, I always love pointing this out whenever we have these kinds of conversations, whenever I read these kinds of articles, that like consistently, it's about 30% of the society is delusional. Like, and if you actually think the federal government is doing enough to address housing affordability, you are delusional. Or you just don't care, right? So you could just pick which one of those two poles you'd like to be part of. You can either be stupid or you can be a psychopath. And it's consistently 30% of the society. So enough to vote in Doug Ford, right? Enough to vote in a conservative government. That's how we roll. Jay Pringle says the emotion of despair in mortals empowers the plague god capitalism more than any other. Yeah, it does seem to be that's the case. Like, there just comes a point where you have to start saying, like, is the goal of the ruling class to make life miserable for everyone? Like, is this their objective? I mean, considering that many of them went to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island, you got to be like, yeah, seems right. Despite consistently telling governments that housing is a priority, that we need to keep the dream of home ownership alive in Canada, Canadians believe that governments simply aren't doing enough to act. Yeah, no shit. Despite what Canadians may feel, economists tracking the affordability of homes in Canada say there's been some modest improvement over the past year. What a great way to fucking, there's more. Like, let's take a look at the modest improvement over the last year. National Bank's Financial's Housing Affordability Monitor tracks the real estate market in Canada based on households' ability to both save for a down payment and make monthly mortgage payments in their respective market. For the first time in more than 2 years, housing affordability improved in the final quarter of 2022, National Bank reported in its latest report, ending the longest sequence of declining affordability since the 1980s. So the line went like this, like the line was going, and so the line went like this, And they're going, yeah, we did it. Improvements, we did it. National Bank economists expect the trend to persist into 2023 as the housing correction continues and the Bank of Canada appears to be holding its benchmark rate steady. I also love how they're reporting that the interest rates, like the goal, this is the goal of the interest rate, that the goal of the interest rate is to actually moderate housing prices, when obviously the goal of jacking the interest rate is to bankrupt as many people as possible so the rich can get assets for cheap. That's the point, right? It's not to actually confront the problem. It's to use this problem as a crisis, right? To take advantage of this crisis on behalf of the billionaire class, so the billionaires can bankrupt a bunch of smaller players and get their assets for cheap. That's the reason you're raising interest rates. It has nothing to do with this. Like, I mean, it has like a modest like side effect, but nothing serious. Like, it's not fucking real. Sondi agrees that if current trends hold, 2023 could see the modest improvements in affordability. Oh yes, we're going to see another 5% dip from the 300% increase. While TD projects home prices will start to climb gradually again through the year. I love it. We're going to see modest improvements. Literally the next sentence. Yeah, we're going to... house prices are going to go up. Like, declining mortgage rates could open the door to more Canadians looking to enter the housing market. Like, it's like they're just wizards saying dumb shit in the hopes that you won't realize that they're full of shit. Like... declining mortgage rates could open the door to more Canadians looking to enter the housing market. And people are reading that being like, I mean, yeah, it seems right. Declining mortgage rates. Yeah, that'll do it. Like, if you have no fucking money, and the bank doesn't operate for the benefit of the people. It operates for the benefit of the ruling class exclusively. Like, it doesn't give a shit about you. It does not give a shit about you at all. That this is all a grift, all of it. Craig is just spinning a narrative in order to con you into believing that, like, yeah, there are serious people that are seriously taking a look at this and they're seriously going to make sure that things happen seriously. When in reality, they're all sitting there being like, okay, how do we make more money for ourselves? Like, how do we con a bunch of stupid, dumb morons into giving us their money for nothing? That's what they're doing. And we're all just like, no, the interest rate's going up, and so that'll mean that that the line will go down. It makes sense that everything's fine because the housing prices actually declined even though they went up 300%. And while the economy is likely to slow, oh, well, there you go, a little glimmer of truth. And I love it. We're down near the bottom of the fucking article, and they're like, by the way, this whole thing's cratering. Right? The whole economy is going downhill. The OECD reports that, like, I think the thing that is striking me the most about this article is how unserious it is. Like, there are very serious things that are happening in the Canadian economy. And these guys are all, yeah, like they're just saying this with like a shit-eating grin, basically. That like, you should accept this because it's, you know, this is all very complicated and you should just accept it, you know? And while the economy is likely to slow, Canadian households are projected to see modest income growth through the year, Sondi says, helping to boost what prospective buyers can afford in the housing market. We do anticipate seeing some improvement in affordability moving forward, he lies. However, Sondi cautions that affordability will be strained. We expect that there will be affordability unless the country makes significant strides towards improving the housing supply in the face of expected population growth, right? It's all about increasing the housing supply. That's all it is. So it's a lot like saying, we need the rich to have more assets. That's the real problem, is that the rich need to buy more houses. And if the rich don't have access to more houses, then affordability will go down. Forget about the fact that there's like 5 empty houses for every homeless person. Forget about the fact that BlackRock and Vanguard and these places are hoarding all of these houses. Forget about the fact that I've literally got an article here from the Insider saying boomer home buying bonanza, that the fucking boomer generations are buying up houses, that they've got 2 or 3 houses each, instead of actually just allowing next generations to have it. Like, it's so fucking stupid, I can't even tell you how fucking stupid it is. While the past few years have seen a robust pace for housing starts, Sondhi says TD is expecting a slowdown on this front as demand diminishes. He notes, too, that starts are not the same as housing completions, and the building process has faced delays in recent years. Oh, no shit. Turns out that capitalists are full of shit and don't create or innovate shit, right? Big surprise. Simpson says governments need to act courageously to betray the populace so effectively, and align across jurisdictional levels to get homes built. The federal government recently launched its Housing Accelerator Fund, which seeks to encourage municipalities to build homes quickly. So to reinterpret that sentence, the federal government recently gave a bunch of money to rich developers to sit on empty properties. Simpson encourages existing homeowners, who still outnumber renters in Canada, to have empathy. Oh yeah, now it's about empathy. Oh, okay, interesting. For those looking to get into the housing market and resist impulses like NIMBYism, attitudes that more dense development should exist, but not in my backyard. How can we act a little bit differently in order to make sure that the dream stays alive for those who are saving to be able to buy their first home, Simpson asks. There are likely smaller things that we can collectively do that might shave off a little bit of value, but if it helps to build more affordable housing or housing for people's children when they're ready to buy, then it might be something we need to look at. Here's an idea. Here's a fucking idea. How about we make a rule that says if you own a house, you don't get another house if someone doesn't have a house. There you go. Oh, I see you already own a house, but you'd like to buy another house. But too bad. There's people who don't have houses, so you gotta wait. No, you can't do that, because the free market, the invisible hand of the free market will come through and solve this problem, even though it obviously doesn't. Like, this is stupid. Like, this is stupid. Yeah, what does that mean, act courageously? I especially love that it's like, we've got to act, we've actually got to act courageously in order to utterly betray the populace. When it comes to betraying the mass of the people, when it comes to betraying our own children, we got to make sure that we're acting courageously. That you can't simply give people homes. Like, what are you talking about? That's not courageous, right? That's not courageous. It's not courageous to make sure that your children are well taken care of. It's not courageous to make sure that future generations are taken care of. It's not courageous to put together systems that actually care about the well-being of the populace. None of that is courageous. What's courageous is betraying everyone so 5 guys can have a lot of money. Like, that's courageous. Like, we are a deeply and sincerely unserious people. And we're gonna get completely sideblinded. Actually, John, I could see 30% actually being a part of these small-time house flippers and up. Makes sense they would seem like they're out to lunch. Yeah, I could totally see at least 30% of a population being relatively okay enough to be checked out of reality. Yeah, I mean, conservative voters, right? Conservatives have about 30% support. So, just a populace completely checked out of reality. Like, I remember when I was in school, right, we would read plays, and we would read from the playwrights who were writing these plays, and they were saying, like there's one Ian Esco who wrote the play The Rhinoceros, which was a play that he wrote a play that was about being in a community that became Nazi, that everyone around him suddenly became a Nazi. And so in the play, he created an allegory where everyone around him became rhinoceroses, right? So instead of Nazis, they were rhinoceroses. And there's a similar thing that's happening today. that I see it all around. Everybody is just suddenly becoming fascist. Everybody is suddenly becoming just like absolutely completely fine with these absolute dark principles. And I think a lot of it just comes down to just basic rage. That people are upset and they're just willing to fall for whatever narrative is dangled in front of them. And the narrative that Pierre Poilievre is peddling is a classic conservative grift that's not going to solve anything because Pierre Poilievre works for the same people that Trudeau works for. This is the best part. Like, he's walking around being like, oh, this is just inflation, and this is it's the Liberals who are doing it with their tax and spend policies and all this. When he knows full well that what the Liberals are doing, they're doing on behalf of the ruling class. And when he gets into power, he's going to do the same. He's going to operate on behalf of the ruling class. It's going to be the same shit. It's just we're too dim-witted to realize it. And of course, the populace is going to, for years, when Pierre Poilievre gets into power, for years and years, people will be like, this is better than Justin. But what Pierre is doing is better than Justin. And everything is going to be a conversation about the Conservatives versus the Liberals, and no one's going to acknowledge what is patently obvious and completely true, that they're allies, that the Conservatives and the Liberals work together, that, and Justin Trudeau, just the way that the John Horgan did, Justin Trudeau will go work for some fossil fuel industry. He'll go sit on a board of directors for a coal company or something, just like John Horgan did. And when Pierre Poilievre is out of office, he'll go do the same thing, because they all work for the same people. And then you get guys like Craig Lord working for Global News, writing these softball articles that are genuinely designed to create a false narrative that is so full of shit. It's so obvious to see how full of shit it is that most people, I think, are just checking out of it. That they're looking at these articles that are nonsense. Like, this is a nonsense article, right? There's nothing genuine here. There's nothing real here. It's just a bunch of sycophants jerking off their owners, creating a bullshit narrative that doesn't make any sense if you look at it for more than 30 seconds. But the general populace goes along with it because there isn't another narrative. Because this is considered normal. Like, it really makes you see how the Salem witch trials actually happened, doesn't it? Really makes you see how societies can get caught up in hysteria. Really makes you see how things like the Nazis can seize power. That just tell the biggest, broadest, most absolute bullshit lie you possibly can. Omit as much information that's true as possible. And if you have to acknowledge the truth, only do so if you can pivot it into your false narrative. And like, suddenly you're just fucking hanging witches and shit. Hey Timothy, how you doing, bud? Radio, good to see you, bud. Cal, absolute pleasure. Yeah, unlimited seizure on the second home. Yeah, for fucking real. Well, and I mean, we shouldn't even be going after the second home. We should be going after BlackRock and Vanguard. We should be going after these big corporate entities. We should be shutting down Airbnbs. Like, the idea that Airbnbs exist at all is just an abomination. It's just a complete and total abomination. Like, it's just creating flop houses again. Like, during the Great Depression, people created flop houses. And you had slumlords buying up huge properties so that they could just create flop houses for people. And they were just scummy slumlords. And that's what Airbnbs are. They're just scummy slumlords creating flop houses again. And we're all just like, no, but it's the free market deciding. Because we're dumb. Because we're just fucking dumb. And we love it, by the way. That's my favorite part. We just love how stupid we are. We're over the moon about how stupid we are. We can't get enough of our own stupidity. There are whole towns, cities, countries that suffer from people outside buying second homes, especially in touristic places like Portugal and Spain. Yeah. I find it sad that all the young people who increasingly consider themselves socialists are probably going to have their energy funneled into electoral politics. Yep. I think that that's true. Like, it here in North America, because the degree of the propaganda is so, we are so heavily propagandized. Like, we actually think that what's happening is normal. Like, that's what I think is so crazy, is that we have had lunacy normalized, and we actually genuinely believe that systems that were created by kings and slavers are actually going to respond to us. That's what I think is the craziest part. That we're actually sitting here saying, sure, the guy that wrote this document was raping women who he literally owned as slaves, but this is the best system possible. Like, that is actually the statement that's being made. And if you stand up and say, we probably shouldn't base our system on what, like, serial rapists, murderers, and slavers thought, then you're anti-American and why you just move to China. Like, what is this except the worship of stupidity? Like, for real. Like, what is this except the worship of stupidity? That it's not, for me, it's not even like a moral issue. Like, it's so obvious that you shouldn't base a ruling class system on what slaving rapists thought. Is there anyone out there that actually thinks that if a slave rapist writes down something and sends it into the world, that we should go, this is the great divine document of the founding fathers? And it turns out that there's huge amounts of the populace that think that way, right? Because we're stupid, right? It's not that those people are bad. It's not like it's not like that, because to them it's not about morality, right? It's not a moral decision that they're making. They just genuinely believe that, like, George Washington is this unimpeachable good, and when he's like a mass murderer, that Thomas Jefferson was like the greatest philosopher that ever walked this plane of reality. Even, you know, he had sex slaves, but who doesn't want to have sex slaves? Like, my country even still has a king, and no one has an objection to that. What sane society chooses its leader by who can marry their cousins the most? Yeah. So, from the Insider, boomer home buying bonanza. Millennials are desperate to buy a home, but cash flush boomers are standing in their way. Millennials have never had it easy in the housing market. A mountain of student debt, a widespread housing shortage, and stiff competition from their deep-pocketed elders kept them on the sidelines longer than previous generations. Despite these challenges, the sheer size of the generation, combined with the fact that many of its members have now reached prime home buying age, means more millennials are literally getting their foot in the door with each passing year. But after a decade in which the avocado toast generation sat atop the housing market heap, baby boomers have suddenly and unexpectedly seized the upper hand. Between July 2021 and June 2022, boomers were the largest share of home buyers for the first time since 2012. According to new data from the National Association of Realtors, boomers purchased 39% of all homes that sold during that span, up from 29% the years before. Millennials, on the other hand, saw their share of the market shrink to just 28%, down from 43% the year prior. Despite the numbers game favoring millennials, a slew of other factors conspired to allow boomers to stick it to their successors. The main thing, though, was cash. Boomers are more advanced in their careers and in many cases have already spent decades amassing home equity, making them much more likely than other generations to fork over all cash for their next property. And when bidding wars become the norm, it pays to offer a lump sum. Like, is there a moment where we just get to say these guys are psychopaths? Like, does that actually play? Like, do we actually get to say outright, out loud at any moment? Right? Millennials know they have time on their side since boomers will eventually age out of the market entirely, but playing the waiting game may not be the best strategy. There are already signs that Gen Z is coming up right behind, right? And this is all just a way to create intergenerational warfare when the trouble is capitalism, as always, right? That we, for some reason, we have decided to distribute housing as a commodity. That we have allowed capitalism to exist in this market at all. There should be no housing market. The housing market should not exist. 0% housing market. No housing market at all. 0%. That, oh, you don't have a home? Here you go. Should be what we do. But we're not doing that because, again, as I say a lot on this stream, we're very dumb. Like, we're not an intelligent people. Content, Kid Rock is malding over Bud Light beer and shooting his beer up with guns? What a profoundly stupid motherfucker. Maybe we deserve this. Yeah. I think that that's right. Like, when I was growing up, it was sort of understood that the average person, like Homer Simpson, is sort of the average person, right? The everyman. People like Al Bundy, right? These people were considered like the average man. That we are profoundly, profoundly dumb, like not very intelligent people. But even when I was growing up, there was at least some sense that these people had an idea of what is good for their children and what is good for their community. Like, what we are watching is a profound, overwhelming betrayal. Like, and the question, I think, like, it seems to me like what we're going through now is a Dadaist period where just nonsense is going to reign for a long time. That media is just going to become like incoherent garbage. A type of Dadaism is taking place. Like the superhero movies are a form of this, if you ask me, where it's just babyish nonsense. We're delving into escapism, and it'll become more extreme and more sort of like Cocaine Bear. Like, things will just get extraordinarily obviously absurdism for the sake of absurdism, and that we're not capable of generating anything except absurdism. Which isn't to say that there won't be narratives and there won't be things that come out of it, but like a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? It's just like absurdist nonsense in front of your face, and we love it. And that type of thing is what's taking place in the society. And there's no... So while that's going on, this delving into absurdism, there is no narrative that's coming out of the society that says, hey, maybe we should care about our own children. Maybe we should actually give a shit about what's going to happen to the next generation. Maybe we should actually care about how the next generation is going to be treated and what conditions the next generation is going to step into. And I think it won't be until the boomers finally die off that we begin, and I do mean like begin, to seriously have these conversations where we're actually starting to say, like, maybe we shouldn't build systems that actively betray the next generation. And I do think that the question that the society is going to start asking itself in more and more serious ways is, how did we actively betray ourselves so profoundly? Like, you could never imagine Homer Simpson or even Al Bundy betraying his own children. That, sure, they were mean to, like Homer would choke Bart, and Al was mean to his own kids and all that. But this profound betrayal, this insistence that your children must suffer and must be betrayed so profoundly, is something that I think is worthy of our conversation and worthy of our study. Like, how did this happen? How did it come to pass? that we actually looked at our own children and said, fuck you. Yeah, and when the boomers die off, it's not us that'll inherit that home. Yet the boomer die-off will be a period of terrible monopolization of the housing market. Yeah, well, and that'll be if the boomers keep the house to pass it down, right? Like, a lot of these boomers, I think, once they start going and, like, they're going to move to old age homes and they'll just sell the house and just say to their kids, yeah, fuck you, the way they always have, right? Like, if they've got a kid who doesn't have a house and is renting or something, they'll just sell the house and go move into an old age home and just say fuck you to that kid. Because that's what they've always done. It's nothing new. Like, it's very strange. Like, it's very, very strange and wild to watch. The sort of dingy nature of this. The current king of Canada is Charles III. Yeah, technically, it's true. Charles III. Cal says, have you seen in Germany they've built these pods for homeless people to sleep in? Obviously better than sleeping on the street, but why not just house the homeless? Yeah. Like, and anything to dehumanize them, right? Anything to make sure that they're, because what they're doing, like, those pods are not built for the benefit of the homeless, but to ease the consciousness of liberals. It's to make liberals be able to sleep better at night. That's what it's about. That the psychopath cultures, and Germany is certainly a psychopath culture, insists that these people must suffer, but there's enough liberalism in the society that says, like, okay, but they don't need to suffer to this degree, they can suffer to that degree. And so the psychopath culture relents ever so slightly and does something that's ineffective, but maintains the dehumanization. That's what's important, right? It's important to maintain the dehumanization of the homeless, to ensure that they are a separate people, to ensure that they're not like you, to ensure that and to ensure that they understand that they are subhuman. That's very important in the psychopath society. That you have to make sure that the subhuman understand that they're subhuman. And you can't just house people. You can't give people dignity. You can't say, yes, we're equals and we're peers, and sure, you've hit hard times, and we're gonna take care of you and make sure that everything's okay. You can't say any of that, because that might actually humanize them, right? And then you wouldn't be living in a psychopath culture the way that we do, right? That the culture is not capable of producing those results, because the culture is psychopathic, and is only not turning directly against its own people, because it has victims to destroy internationally, which eventually will stop, and then the culture will turn on itself, the way that psychopath cultures always do. Now, micro homes is a fucking abomination. I see developers turning shipping containers into cute little micro homes where the rent is $1,800 a month. Yeah. Like, I am not opposed morally to the idea of micro homes if they were just given to people, right? If the solution of the society was, oh, we need to house these people, so why not make micro homes and just put homeless people in the micro homes, right? And just let them have them. Like, that's the foundation, that's the baseline. But no, you need to insert a landlord. You need to make sure that there's some parasite that's siphoning away the productive value of the society into their offshore account, and thereby putting the society into a decline. Right? Because instead of the productivity of the individual going back into the society and fueling the economy, it just goes into the pockets of these big giant developers, these big giant landlords who just offshore the wealth so they can go to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. Like, that's the point. Like, that's the structure of the piece, and it's amazing to watch us fail this badly. Content, that 30% needs to be taken to task, and the fence sitters should be terrorized into choosing a side. I mean, I do think that, like, the hard reality of what's going to happen in the society is that when the value of the dollar plummets, i.e. when the consequences of the psychopath society come to fruition, right? Like, if you lived in a neighborhood and there was just like a crazed, ruthless psychopath going around murdering people, you would expect to see something happen. You would expect to see like people come together and actually isolate this individual, right? And that's what's going to happen to us. But the unfortunate truth is that when it happens to us, that 30% is going to go full-blown fascist. Like full-blown fascist. Like mask off, complete with like the salutes and everything. The culture is going to lose its mind. There's gonna be like the icons and the iconography, the flags, all this shit is going to happen. And we're going to have a period of overt mask-off fascism in America and in Canada and across Europe. I mean, you take a look at what's going on in the UK, and you're like, yeah, like it's going to become mask-off. It's going to become really obvious. The question is, to what degree are they going to be willing to like round people up, kick in doors? We're already seeing them go against the trans community really, really hard, right? And I mean, this is how it happened during the fascist period in Europe, is that they went after small groups first, and then those groups got larger and larger and larger until there was nobody else. Like that, and that's genuinely what we're seeing happen in our society today. Like how much longer until trans people are just gay people? How much longer until gay people are communists? How much longer until even being a progressive is no longer considered? And of course, how much longer until it's the Jews, right? Like how much longer? Not it sooner than you'd like is the response to that. Sooner than you'd like. Because a psychopath society like this, a society that has gone as psychopathic as this, that is not at all interested in even acknowledging the problems it's creating, because it views the problems it's creating as a manifest destiny, that these are externalities to the greater glory of the empire, that kind of thinking. Well, all of that comes home to roost. All of that comes home to roost. You can see that in figures like Dan Crenshaw, right? That your hope is that people go overseas and fight in these wars and then learn their lesson, that they work for a demonic empire that's obviously turning against its own citizens, and then come home and are anti-war voices. But looks to me like the military has figured out how to cultivate people like Dan Crenshaw. Just find overt, crazed, ruthless psychopaths who obviously despise their own people, who obviously despise the poor, who obviously despise minority groups, literally put an eye patch on and make him look like a James Bond villain, right? And then put him in a place where he'll get voted in because the society is psychopathic. Like, I'm actually way more, like, right now we're talking about like Trump and DeSantis, right? These are the guys that we're talking about right now. Well, what about fucking Crenshaw? What about guys like that? Like, once we go through this period with Trump or DeSantis or any of this kind of shit, like once the Republican Party shits those guys out, well, do you know what the next generation looks like? Looks like fucking Dan Crenshaw. Looks like fucking literal James Bond villains who are overt and obvious fascists. Like, DeSantis talks the fascist game because he's smart enough. But I don't think he believes any of it. I just think he's just doing it because that's what his crazed base wants. Dan Crenshaw's a true believer. Like, Dan Crenshaw murders people. Like, he's a psycho murderer who has gone overseas and killed people. And he'll happily do it over here too. So what do we do? So right now, it's about consolidation for us. It's about building community for us. That what we should be doing, what we should be seriously doing, is acting as though the empire has already collapsed. That I've been thinking a lot recently about, like, yes, we should be surrounding the halls of power. Yes, we should be fomenting an internal revolution. Yes, we should be building this kind of stuff. But the thing that we really have to be doing is organizing ourselves and organizing as a people as if the empire has already collapsed. Because the fascists are going to act that way. Like, the people who are attempting to assert the power of the empire are going to treat us that way anyway. So we should start acting that way now. And acting as though the empire doesn't have any authority, because it doesn't. That the only power that the empire actually has is the power of the violence of the police force and the military. That we shouldn't honor their laws because there are no laws. There's just threats. Half the average liberals are just waiting to show the fascist tendencies they're hiding right now. Yeah, scratch a liberal, a fascist bleeds. The fence sitters aren't warriors either, so if they go fascist, they won't have the stomach for it. No, but the whole point, like the whole point of being a liberal is that you get to turn a blind eye while the fascists do the work. Like it doesn't take enough. It doesn't take a million fascists, right? Like it doesn't take huge numbers of fascists, because and this is what I always say, is that the fascists are willing to murder people and everybody else really isn't. Like that's more or less the truth of it. That if you've got one crazed, ruthless psycho who is willing to murder people and 1,000 people who are not willing to do the same to that crazed murderer, then the crazed murderer is the one that's in charge. Like that's the fundamental truth. And the true reason why fascists are so scared of communists is because we're willing to kill fascists. That's the difference. The fascists have been gaining power for hundreds of years, and the communists have been on the defensive the whole time. Clearly, the strategy of communists in the first world hasn't worked. I mean, there's not really communists in the first world. Like, the McCarthy period basically purged them all out. Like, the assassination of Martin Luther King and Fred Hampton and Malcolm X, right? Like, throughout the 60s, there was like an active, like a virulent and active purge of communists and communism in the society, and it worked, right? Like it's not like this has happened passively. It's not like this has been like communism and capitalism came together and capitalism beat out communism because it's just a better, superior system, which is the narrative that the capitalists lie about, right? Like, the capitalists rounded communists up, banned them from industries, outright shot them in the streets. Like, the war on drugs was admitted. Like, they've admitted it now, that the war on drugs was designed to destroy these movements, right? So it's not that it's not that the strategy of the communists in the first world hasn't worked. It's just that the capitalists have shown that they're willing to murder people. Like, this is the hard truth of it. That and something that we're really struggling with as leftists and as people who are trying to build organizations. Like, we've got to give our heads a shake and recognize that the capitalists are murderers and are going to murder people and happily do so. And do so openly. Admit it. Like, when they're bombing Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia and Korea, they're doing so explicitly telling you the reason why they're doing it. To staunch the spread of communism. Right? They're not trying to pretend otherwise. And if that's what they're doing overseas, what are they doing in their own empire? What are they doing to their own people? What is the CIA up to in the domestic circles? We know exactly what they're doing. We know exactly what they're doing. And like, the left really struggles with this. And I really think that it is one of these things where consistently through time we see that the left and leftists generally underestimate the psychopathic nature of fascists and underestimate the psychopathic nature of the right. That we constantly fall for this trap of believing in the humanity and the basic humanity of these people. And they don't have it. They don't have it. And if we continue to operate with this idea That, oh, we'll just negotiate with these guys. Oh, we'll just debate them. Oh, we'll persuade them, right? We'll change their mind in that way. Well, when they show up with guns and start murdering our leaders like they always have 100% of the time, when they start rounding people up and start blacklisting people, we won't be ready for it. Because we keep acting like they're rational people capable of responding rationally to basic conversation and basic debate, when that's not how they communicate. It's never how they've communicated. Like, I don't know where to place my efforts. All the organizations I've come across here are just impotent. They can only put out newsletters and slogans that sound like they're from the 1800s. I mean, you know, Cal, the one of the things that I genuinely believe in, like, and I genuinely believe in this, is if you can't find the movement, you're the movement. Like, I know that's kind of putting a lot on somebody, but I've always believed this. If you can't find the movement, you're the movement. Tough shit. Like, tough shit. That it's up to you. You are the one that can print the flyer. You are the one that can set the date. You are the one that can go to campuses. You are the one that can gather people. You are the one that can have these conversations. You are the one that can spread these ideas. You are the one that can do it. It is you. If you are looking around yourself saying, there is nothing going on here, then it is you. And if you don't do it, then it doesn't happen. And that's the God-honest truth. Juan Buchanan, fascists, if given weapons of mass destruction, will gladly destroy everything if it means to prove a point. Yeah. Like, I mean, and we know they're psychos. Take a look at the Uyghur genocide. Like, this shows you how, like, deluded and detached these guys are. These guys genuinely want us to believe that they care about Muslims. Like, really think about that. Like, really, really think about that. That these guys are actually sitting there being like, I know what will convince people. We'll say that we care about Muslims. And then people will let us go murder a bunch of Chinese people. Like, not only are these people desperately stupid, they're also psychos. Like, they want to murder Chinese people so badly, man. Like, they are so looking forward to murdering a bunch of Chinese people. They're pounding the drum on it, man. They want it so fucking badly. That, like, the only reason why they haven't just been actively pursuing a path of overtly murdering Chinese people is because the greed impulse inside of them took over for a little while. That they were like, oh, we can make a lot of money. We can exploit them for their labor and make a lot of money on them, right? And so that took over for a little while. But now that's backfiring for the obvious reasons that it did, which is that you gave them the manufacturing base and you're too stupid to realize, because you don't even have a critical analysis of your own society to recognize that, yeah, giving communists the means of production, like, the Chinese are literally walking around holding up Marxism and communism and being like, we want to seize the means of production. And the capitalists gave them the means of production. Like, really, really fucking think about how stupid this is. Right? And now the capitalists are turning around and just frothing at the mouth, trying to find a way to convince the liberals in their midst to let them go in there and murder a bunch of Chinese people. Santora says they will not be debated. They will be beaten down, tied, and judged for their actions. Yeah, we'll see about that, bud. We'll see about that. Cal, they claim to care for the Muslims, but in the same breath support Israelis invading the Alaska mosque. Yeah, because it's bullshit. Yeah, these Asiatic gremlins are owning us because we gave them the means of production. Who knew? Who knew that giving a country your manufacturing base would have such desperate consequences? But it's just like, it's shocking. It's shocking to watch and to see it constantly unfolding in front of us. In the meantime, Royal Canadian Navy pitches $60 billion submarine purchase, say defense and industry sources. But that price tag could climb to $100 billion as military equipment procurement programs are rarely on budget. Just as a reminder, just as a friendly reminder, that the Prime Minister's office pegged the cost of a basic income at $100 billion. So make sure all your citizens have access to food and shelter. Make sure all your citizens have access to the market. Make sure that there's a foundation upon which everybody can operate from, so that there's not homelessness or the negative, desperate outcomes of capital, right? No, too expensive. How are you going to pay for that, right? $100 billion for some submarines. No problem. Where do I sign? Like, how do we make that happen, right? Oh, and what are these submarines for, even? Like, what do you think you're gonna achieve with this? Like, what are you gonna get? Do you think? Like, it's so astounding. It's so astounding watching us act like scared little monkeys, like just scared little chimps, squawking and squalling so that we can get like a toy, more or less, just like a toy, and we can act all big and tough, getting inside of our toy so that we can go to a place and blow somebody up, somebody we've never met, we don't know anything about them, right? We don't care to know anything about them. I've actually been reading more of Deng and more of the stuff that Deng actually wrote, and it's actually fucking crazy to me that, like, it wasn't a secret. Like, the strategy that Deng was moving forward with, that Dengist thought was moving forward with, was explicitly stated. That Deng said it over and over and over again, openly, in front of everybody, in speeches, that the goal was to get Western capital in, and then to have future generations merge that Western capital with Chinese society and spread that wealth out, and to integrate those institutions into the body of China. So he acknowledged that they would start as capitalist, but then cease to be capitalist as time went forward. And that's what he was saying outright. And it just shows me very clearly that Americans are illiterate. Like literally Congress people, senators, the president certainly, right? The diplomats, the ambassadors, these people are fucking illiterate. Like, if they did read what he was writing, and if they did listen to what they were writing, they certainly didn't care. Like, they certainly didn't care. And now they're just like, yeah, but then Trots and Ultras say that won't work, except it obviously did. Like, except it obviously did. Like, that's the best part. Like, proof's in the pudding, isn't it? Like, it obviously has. Like, you got to be dim-witted to think it didn't. And and we're turning around and saying, yeah, you know what the best thing for us to do right now as a people is? That the best response to us deindustrializing our own country, to gutting our manufacturing base, to impoverishing our own people, to spreading misery throughout our own society, to fueling fascism across the country, the best thing for us to do is to spend money on submarines. That's how we should do it. That's what we should be focusing on. Absolutely. Like, I feel like I'm caught in like a cycle. I feel like it's the same circle over and over and over again. I feel like I'm saying the same thing every fucking night. Because I feel like we as a culture and a society are caught in a cycle. Like I think that we're caught in a cultural feedback loop. It's what Albert Einstein said, right? That the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. That we're constantly doing the same thing and we're constantly expecting a different result. And it just doesn't seem to matter. And we're seeing this massive decline. And we're seeing the society fall. Is there anything we can do about it? Is there anything that can be done about it? And then, of course, I get to thinking, is there anything that should be done about it? Because there does come a point where I have to start thinking maybe humanity just deserves what's coming. Like, we've had every single opportunity to turn away from this. We've had every single opportunity. Chance after chance after chance. Moment after moment after moment. Warning after warning after warning. Over and over and over and over and over and over again. And we just refuse. And it has to be called a refusal. Like, is it in our blood? Is it in our genetics? Is it how it's supposed to go? Did the universe create us just for us to implode this way? And I can't really even be sorrowful about it anymore, you know? I think that's, as I'm getting older, and as I'm looking at this situation we find ourselves in more and more, like I've been doing this YouTube channel now for 2, maybe 3 years even. And so I've been really inundating myself with this. And they're really, it's very much how I feel about the school shooting stuff. Like, I just can't feel sad about it anymore. Like, I feel like if I felt sad about it, it would drive me crazy. Because it's obvious what needs to happen. It's obvious what needs to be done. It's obvious that something must be done at the very least, and yet nothing is ever done. That there is no even attempt to address the issue. It's literally just thoughts and prayers. And the solutions that they're reaching for are literally like train kids in school shooter drills, put infrastructure into classrooms to shield children from school shooters. This is what they're doing. Armed teachers. This is the stuff that they're doing. And so I just can't feel sad about it anymore. I just can't put that energy in. And I feel very much the same way about things like climate change. And I feel very much the same way about the decline of the American empire. Like, we've had every single possible opportunity to repent. We've had every single possible opportunity to repent. To acknowledge that reality exists. To acknowledge that the universal forces of the earth itself are far more powerful than us. Far more powerful than us. And we're going to learn those lessons in dramatic ways. In hard and difficult ways. That everything we've been experiencing up until this moment have been just little shots across the bow. Just the universe giving us a little flick on the forehead. Like, yeah, several of my former colleagues at the at colleges are diehard gun nuts. Yeah, because here's what's so funny about gun nut types, is that at base, it's this Mad Max belief. It's this dim-witted belief that when things go sideways, I will at least be better off because I've got a knowledge of guns. And I'm going to be able to protect myself and protect the people around me. That's where that energy centers. That there's this fascination on guns, but fundamentally it is, I'm a scared little monkey, and so I'm going to know the most about this, because when the time comes, I'll be ready and you won't. Right? That's the argument. The air will become unbreathable. Right? Like, the water will boil. Right? Like, I don't hear anyone, even like the climate change alarmist people, I don't hear anyone actually acknowledging or saying out loud in any serious way that if the temperature continues to rise, there will be moments where the air will no longer be breathable, where forests and cities will ignite, where the water will boil. And these guys are walking around talking about how important it is to have a gun. This is the stupidity we are looking at. Like, this is the stupidity we are looking at. That we have absolutely no respect whatsoever for the power of the universe and for the power of the earth itself. We have absolutely no respect for it whatsoever. And when it finally turns against us, it isn't going to be close. The fight is not going to be a fight. It will be more like a person squashing a bug. That you saw what happened with COVID and how debilitating COVID was. Well, what if COVID comes out again, except if you get it, you die? What if you have a black plague, a real black plague that comes in? What is that going to do? What is that going to do to us? And these guys are walking around talking about, oh, we got to make sure we're protected. Got to make sure we got the gun. It's childish. What we need to be doing is actually the opposite of doing. That we've gotten into this trouble because of the doing. That we need to stop this lunacy. We need to stop this nonsense. I'm wondering if all these post-apocalyptic films are training us to not band together when it all falls down. Individualistic scramble for resources and death in the streets. I mean, we know how humans act during crises. Like, we know how it goes. That it's always a deferral to the most powerful, which, I mean, this is what the gun nut crowd is all about. They want to be the most powerful. They want to be the best positioned. I just don't think the apocalyptic films and all this kind of stuff are actually very serious, because I think that they're quite unimaginative. Like, to me, that's sort of the core of it all. That, like, maybe you're right, but it's the complete and total lack of imagination from these quote-unquote storytellers, even in the making of these apocalyptic films, that, like, I've said it a couple of times already, and we've seen fairly credible reports that the air is going to become more difficult to breathe. Like, I don't care what your idea of, like, a society is going to look like, because I don't think you're taking very seriously the nature of what's going to happen to us. Like, that, this is really how I've always looked at climate change. That it seems as though in the imagination space, people look at climate change as if it's going to be like a tidal wave. That a tidal wave is going to come and it's going to kill a bunch of people and it's going to knock out a bunch of infrastructure, but there'll be survivors. That will, rise from the ashes. That kind of a thing. That it'll be like, what it's going to be like, and what I'm listening to from these people. It would be like listening to a guy clutching onto his spear in Pompeii saying, when the volcano erupts, I'll be the one that takes over. That's what I think of these people. Just a person saying to themselves, after the ash sweeps through, after the fires sweep through, after the volcano erupts, it'll be me and my buddies. We'll be ready to rebuild the society afterwards. It's not how it's going to be. That kind of a statement is an insult to the absolute overwhelming power and force of the universe. That we are not going to mount a defense. We're not going to build an underground society. We're not going to have a bunker, build a mountain base. We're not going to escape to Mars. We're not going to rebuild from the ashes. Because the universe, because the earth is going to make it so that we cannot breathe the air. All of this rugged survivalism, all of this post-apocalyptic survivalism that exists in video games, that exists in media, that exists all across the spectrum of the human imagination is not different than believing in Jesus Christ coming back to save us. That all you're doing is replacing Jesus Christ with the human spirit. That the human spirit will always persevere. That the human spirit will always overcome. That the universe will try to throw things at us, but we will always fight back and we will always overcome, and it's magical thinking and it's a total fucking farce. That we can be wiped out so easily, embarrassingly easily. And it's because we refuse to acknowledge the fragile nature of our existences and the fragile nature of our ecosystem and how embarrassingly simple it would be to wipe humanity out. It's because we refuse to acknowledge our fragility and we refuse to acknowledge our vulnerability that we continue to move forward in this childish and ridiculous way. Because we are a childish and ridiculous people who deserve what's coming. Without a doubt, deserve what's coming. Like, it's a big reason why I don't really buy in to the idea of like an alien species that is interested in killing us. Because it would be so simple to do. We would never see them. The idea of like a War of the Worlds style moment where aliens come down with like big tentacle robots shooting lasers at us is such a stupid, dim-witted human idea. It's such a small-minded way of looking at how an intergalactic species would actually deal with humanity. They would destroy our atmosphere from space, and we would all suffocate. That's precisely what they would do. And if they needed to maintain the atmosphere for some reason, they would just funnel in some kind of poison. They would just funnel in some kind of thing. They would remove the stratosphere. Like there's a million different things that you could just do to the system in order to disrupt it so badly that we would not be able to breathe the air. It would be easy to do. It would be easy to do. And we are doing it to ourselves. That in our zeal to dredge the dead up from the earth, that's what carbon is, that's what oil is. It's the corpses of our ancestors. So in our necromantic zeal to dredge up the corpses of our ancestors and funnel them into infernal iron machines to give us superpowers, well, the dead have taken over, and they're not letting us do it for free. Like most necromantic rituals, they come at a steep cost. And the cost that the dead are extracting from the living is the ability for life to persist in this plane of reality. That every time we turn the key and every time we activate our superpowers and every time we fly into space, fly into the sky, drive across the country, every time we turn on a screen and gaze across into the abstract spaces, into these false realities that we have around us, anytime we engage in something superhuman, the way that we have done, it comes at a cost in a necromantic devil's bargain. But because the drip is so slow and obfuscated, and the superpowers are so obvious and entrancing and apparent, we've chosen completely to ignore it. While the dead take over the atmosphere. And eventually they will watch us as we actively work to ignite the world because we couldn't stop playing with toys. That's the hard truth of all of this. Is that the decline of human civilization, the death of humanity, the death of the human spirit, will all be because we couldn't grow up enough to stop playing with toys. That the boys need their big World War II sized tank trucks to drive around. That the boys needed to keep shooting rockets into space. That the boys needed to build submarines and nuclear bombs because they're scared of people who look different than them. That we just needed more and more extravagant, huge, large-scale toys to play with. This is the death of humanity. Entertaining ourselves to extinction. Too stupid to care about what's going to happen to our own children. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. Please hit the bells. Please hit the whistles. If you have $1 jangling around in that pocket, consider donating it. Don't bother saving it for reasons we've just discussed. Send it my way. Because maybe, if you do, and if enough of you do, I'll be able to go scream at some politicians about this stuff. I've been thinking about making shirts that just say the word nigh on them, as in the end is nigh. Right? Calling it like apocalypse chic. Because even if I'm wrong about the level and scale of the devastation that we're facing up against, we are certainly going through an apocalypse. Juan says, your ideas on the death of humanity is getting my brain flowing for a dark comic. Oh, sure. I think about this all the time, dude. And I sit down and I write stuff about it, but I'm exhausted most of the time. And I feel if I engage in my free time in this idea, like it's one thing to talk about it here, because I find the process of doing this to be quite cathartic. It's not the same when I sit down to write fiction. I don't find it to be cathartic. I find it to be very difficult. And so I hit impediments for that reason. It doesn't feed me. It doesn't fuel me. Doing this does. Doing this is like a release. And I can't explain why that's the case. But if you find that these ideas are fueling you, and if you find that making that comic idea or doing that kind of thing is going to create catharsis for you, then please, by all means. By all means. Like, the idea that I've been writing this story called Necromancer, is that the protagonist, who's a necromancer, he uses oil in order to do all kinds of spells and magic, because oil is the corpses of the dead. It allows him to enter a kind of a spirit world or alternative thing. He ends up rescuing an angel from demons and discovers that the burning of the fossil fuel has actually blocked the gates of heaven, and that heaven cannot actually get to earth anymore, which has allowed the demons of hell free reign on earth. And of course, their objective is to continue opening more and more hell gates. And that the angel that the necromancer rescues is one that was trapped and is trapped. And so he sets off on a journey to get this angel to a heaven's gate in the hopes, not that he can open it, but simply that he can get this angel home. Because heaven is unaware that this is going on. No news is good news, as they say. And of course, as I'm writing it, it's very much a spoof on Christianity and modern Christians, because no one is more dim-witted than the modern Christians. No one is more dim-witted than the modern Christian. Man, I feel like this one's gotten very, somber. It does happen, you know? Sometimes I feel like I've got to kind of take a step back and really think about, what is it that I'm doing? What is this for? Why do I even do this? What is the purpose of it? And I like to think that it's about spreading hope or spreading a message of change, that it's possible that humanity will change. It's possible that humanity will repent. But more and more, I've just come to see that what we're doing here is seeking catharsis with one another. that we're trying to find a space and trying to find a way to deal with the hard reality of this apocalypse. And that fundamentally, I think that's the service that I'm providing. Is not sort of some grand false narrative of a bright future for humanity. Instead, it's much closer to the bone, closer to the grave, closer to the ground. That you and I are going to die. That there will be a moment where I will close my eyes and they will never open again. And I will never see what happens here, and I will never know. And I know that that time is coming. And it's going to come sooner than you think. That if you're a young person right now, sooner than you think, you'll be middle-aged. And the people who you thought you were like, the young people that you still think yourself to be, will look at you like you're old. And then before you even think about that, you will be old. And then before you even realize what's going on, you won't even be here anymore. And in the midst of that process, in the midst of the process of your random generation here in this plane of reality, the fleeting and momentary experiences that you have, and then the decline into your death, well, you are here to bear witness to an apocalypse. An apocalypse that we are doing nothing to prevent. And in that way, I think, we can all relieve ourselves of our anxiety and our fear and our depression and the emotions and the feelings that exist within us that we don't really control, that we simply negotiate with. That by acknowledging that the grandest narrative that exists in your life is the moment of your own death, which is inevitable. You can gain the perspective of understanding that the apocalypse you're witnessing is not so bad, is it? That you can go about your day with joy, with ease, with a lightness, simply because you're here, simply because you've been given this gift of life. And you can see the apocalypse around you not as the worst thing that's happening to you, but as part of the gift of your existence. That in the fleeting space of time that you've been permitted to be here, you are here to witness one of the grandest narratives that can happen to a species, which is its end. And that you should not cry for it, or weep for it, or grieve for it. But rather you should celebrate the tiny gift of life that you've been given. because that's what really matters. That we're all here, and it doesn't make any sense, and no one knows why. And I don't think I'm going to spend a moment grieving for a people who refuse to help themselves. No, I think I'm just here to bear witness. To, in some small way, be the eyes and ears of our Creator. And try to have a good time. Taunton says, I had a working class guy insist that things were better with Trump. I said times were hard before Trump, during Trump, and after Trump. He doubled down. All I had the energy to do was suggest he should put Trump on a throne. Imagine believing that Donald Trump helped anybody. I have to say, I rather miss Donald Trump. You know, I think that if Donald Trump gets into power again, I'm going to spend more time with Trump. Biden is a bore. Just an absolute bore. Just a total snooze fest. Donald Trump was at least funny and interesting. He said all kinds of crazy shit. He was a madman. And he really took the mask off of the whole thing. Really made it clear that even if you believe in electoral politics, like, this is not okay. Like, really made it clear to all of the dunders that were walking around, pretending like, oh yeah, we'll just vote our way out of this. Yeah, it's just barely spring and it's already getting hot this year. Summer will be another hell. Oh yes. I think we're going to have a pretty extravagant wildfire season. I think that that's pretty likely. Yes, thank you, Ligon to Z. Hit the like button. Liking is praxis. It's very kind of you to say, bud. Oh, I got myself in a very theological space on this one. Maybe it's because I'm not dealing with the TikTok kiddies. I feel like it's been a long time since I've gotten in this sort of mood to talk about these sorts of things, where we start to ask ourselves in more serious ways. Like, what is this all about? Why are we wasting our time on so much of this dumb bullshit? You know? Why are we wasting our time on any of this dumb bullshit? Why are we spending any of our time whatsoever? Like, this is a good one. The quote-unquote trans debate. Like, who in their right mind would even give a fuck about this at all? How is the response of the existence of a trans person anything other than just, huh? And perhaps some odd, curious questions, and all of this strange, and all of the sort of odd thoughts that we have, sure. But who are these people who are actually legislating? Who are these people who actually are trying to find a way to demonize and exclude these people? And why do we do that? What are we gaining? John, just met some Canadians using the public grill area down here in Florida at your mom's community. Very nice. man, there is like a little part of me that's like, man, I could go down to Miami, have some fun in Miami on Miami Beach. And every single time I've said that to anybody, everybody's response has been like, "Oh, you don't want to go to Florida, John. What are you going to Florida for?" And it's like, oh, well, come on. Like, I understand that Florida is Florida. Like, DeSantis is the king of Florida. But I would go for the beaches and the weather. I wouldn't go for the politics. Certainly. I mean, Miami is just crawling with gusanos. Oh, well, D. Marie, thank you so much. I appreciate that. $5 donation for Marie. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Yeah, John, you really don't want to, but it's capitalist narcissist paradise, but the beaches are nice. Yeah. That's why I would go. I would go because the beaches are nice. It's always nice when someone donates a little something, you know? It would be so lovely to live in a world where we didn't need to worry about money. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just be the best? If just food and shelter were just taken care of, that the things we spent our time doing and the work that we were doing was the work that we just considered valuable, that you're not getting a job because you feel like you have to. You're getting a job because you're bored and there's something better out there in the world to do. I feel like the nature of the jobs that exist would change. That some of the services that we have would definitely stop being produced. But I don't see that as a negative whatsoever. Like, do you think McDonald's would survive? If everybody's food and shelter were taken care of, if it wasn't part of the conversation at all, that it was just assumed that if you didn't have a house, you could walk into a place and that you would get a house, and you would walk into one of these grocery stores and you'd just be able to get food for yourself, right? Like, that was all just built into the fabric of the system and the fabric of nature and the fabric of reality, the fabric of your society. Well, do you think a place like McDonald's would survive? Do you think a place like Tim Hortons would survive? Do you think like Wendy's or any of these absolutely trash garbage places that serve total bullshit would survive? Probably not. And I don't know why people would view that as a tragedy. I don't know why I'm supposed to cherish every single job that this capitalist shithole is producing. I don't know why I'm supposed to really treasure McDonald's and say, oh my God, if you do that, then people will stop working at McDonald's. I hope they do. I sincerely hope they do. That perhaps maybe they want to continue working at McDonald's, and that's fine. Like, maybe that's their life's ambition, is to own and operate a McDonald's. Okay. Well, off you go, I suppose. But I suspect for the masses of the people, for the majority of the people who aren't worrying about having some bills paid, they're going to look at a McDonald's and be like, why would anyone ever work at this kind of place? A place that serves the shittiest food you've ever eaten, that's essentially poisoning the society, making us all fat and gross and ugly, eating meat that's essentially been tortured in facilities. Like, no thank you. And so if McDonald's collapses because we all have access to food and shelter, well then fucking good. Why are we working all these jobs anyway? Like, growing up, and even today, Every solution is just get a job. And every politician says we're going to do job creation. Jobs, 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 jobs. Well, jobs doing what, working for who? And the answer is always doing bullshit for psychopaths. That's always been the answer. That capitalists are universally, with no exceptions, psychopathic. They're ruthless serial killers who will literally trade all of human existence for a penny in their bank account so they can go to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. To an individual, no exceptions. These are the people who we're supposed to, quote unquote, get a job for? No thanks. Doesn't sound like something we should tolerate or be interested in pursuing. And this is fundamentally the reason why the psychopath class is disinterested in providing food and shelter. Because it understands that withholding food and shelter is how it gets people to work for them. And that money is the tool by which it spreads itself into the society. It's how it asserts its dominance and control over others. And I wouldn't complain for a moment if it was gone. I wouldn't complain for a single minute if it was all done with. Or that if it existed, it was like something that was distributed into the society and then collapsed and then redistributed. As if it had no value, because guess what? It doesn't. And that's a hard lesson that I think Americans are about to learn, is the value of their dollar. But all of that said, D. Marie, thank you for your contribution. We still live in a society where money has value. We still worship money. We still pretend as though it's connected to productivity, as our governments print trillions of dollars and give them to failed bankers. It's the absurdity of it all, I suppose. It's this mythological belief. This is why pillar number one of the decline of human civilization is the worship of money. Because it's so obviously ridiculous. Like, it's so obviously ridiculous that we worship money to the degree that we do. It's so silly that we actually trade real, tangible, physical assets and real, tangible institutions in our society to get access to more of it. It's so crazy to me. And shows you very clearly that we don't have a rational governing body. Because any rational governor and any rational political system would have said to the corporate class as they started to ship manufacturing overseas, they would have very clearly said, hey, we'll pay you to keep it here. Like, if the issue is that you want more money, then we'll print more money and give it to you to keep the manufacturing here. Like, this is the degree to which we have disconnected from the reality of what we are doing. That we gutted Detroit. That we gutted our communities. We deindustrialized the country. We don't make anything tangible or real anymore. And we did it so that a small group of child rapists and psychopaths can get more numbers on a screen. When we could have very clearly said to them, oh, you're doing that so you can make more money for yourself. Well, okay, we'll print that money and just give it to you not to do it. And, even more than that, we're just going to nationalize your industry. Because if you're just going to betray us so thoroughly and obviously and overtly and ship all of this stuff overseas and plunge societies into poverty, well then we don't need you to be in control of these industries if that's the way you're going to act. But the fact that there was nobody said that. The fact that there wasn't a single political force that was actually capable of saying, yeah, maybe impoverishing huge sections of the society is bad for the society, shows you that we never had a ruling class. Like, we've never really had a government. Like, we've never actually had a group of people who have actually been like, maybe we should care about the nature of what happens in the society. That everything has always just been, how do we make sure that these slaves are under control? That's the true nature of the American system. That it's not about building a better society. It's about maintaining control. Ensuring that there isn't a peasants' revolt. Or if there is a peasants' revolt, that we can quell it. DeMarie says, haha, it's nothing. I'm sending it as a symbol. Well, DeMarie, if it's nothing, then please be sure to send more. I appreciate it as a symbolic gesture. I really do feel like one of those Christian, like evangelical televangelists. That's what I really feel like when I start talking about, to everybody listening out there in the world, if you want me to spread the good gospel of Jesus Christ, as we've been doing every single day here for years, if you want us to spread the good gospel of Jesus Christ out into the airwaves, you be sure to go find yourself $1 and put it in an envelope and send it to the P.O. box you see below. And as you send it to me, I'll be sure to send the blessings of Jesus Christ right back into your spirit. So please, I'm feeling right now. I've just got a sense of the Holy Spirit coming down into my heart. I can feel there's a woman out there by the name of Esther. Esther, I can tell that your heart is clouded with doubt. Esther, I can tell that you're on the fence about whether or not you want to send money to support your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and his message. Well, Esther, I'm here to tell you today that Jesus Christ wants you to send that money our way to continue supporting the spreading of the gospel and to banish the evils of the world for his sake. So Esther, please reach deep into your heart and think about your love for Jesus Christ. Send that money to the P.O. box you see on your screen right now. God bless you, Esther, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you. That's what I feel like. It's fun doing that, dude. I feel like I should just do it that way. What do you guys think? Our Ouroboros snake. Good strong comment, bud. I don't know if I've ever seen you around here, bud. Good strong comment. Good strong comment. I think I'm going to start doing it that way. What do you guys think? Just going to become a televangelist. Brothers and sisters, we are gathered here today to celebrate the beauties of communism in the world. And if you want to participate and support those who are spreading the good gospel of Jesus Christ and communism into the world, be sure to click on the Patreon link in the description. Even $1 will help, and it'll get you down into the discourse where you can continue the discourse with your fellow communists. Thank you so much for thinking of me, and praise Jesus Christ. J. Pringle, amen. have always said, from the early days of doing this live stream, that if I tried to turn this into a cult, I think it would be way more successful. I think I would be I think I could make a lot more money if I straight up was just like, all right, everybody, let's turn into our Bible to Matthew 23:5. Today we're going to be reading from the good scripture, right? If that's how I was talking, I was just reading the Bible and talking about Jesus Christ on TikTok and fucking YouTube and all this kind of stuff, I think I would be a wealthier person. Because, first of all, I wouldn't be experiencing shadow bans, right? I wouldn't be experiencing a pushback from the capitalist cult, because Christianity is harmless to them in its current form. Real Christianity is actually quite threatening to capitalism, but that's fine. But also, I think it preys on the superstitions of people. That people are afraid of their death, and they want to believe. You know, you're gonna get a crown when in heaven. Jesus Christ you're gonna go meet Jesus Christ and shake his hand. You know, all that shit. And I think I would be real good at it. I think I'd be really good at it. I could put on like a cool outfit. Looking to Z, I appreciate that scene from Castlevania where the demon entered the church because God wasn't there even more now. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about communism, the accent may throw off the algorithm. I doubt it. The algorithm's pretty good. Like, if I start talking about Ukraine, my numbers go down right away. If I start talking about war generally, my numbers go down. Like Taiwan, numbers go down right away. The algorithm's pretty good at picking that stuff up, and it's explicitly anti-communist. So I like, one of the things that I always spread around that people are actually quite shocked by, but is absolutely the truth, is there are like basically every Marxist I follow on TikTok gets banned. I know guys who have had their account banned several times. There's one guy by the name of Midwestern Marx, who is very intelligent and very good at what he does and is very thorough. And he's had his account banned 7 times. So it's fairly obvious that the algorithm is fascist and that the people who are running TikTok are fascists. Pretty blatantly, frankly. And so someone like me, like, it's only a matter of time. Like, I had my live stream shut down, 10 minutes in on TikTok today? That I do a TikTok stream at the same time I do this stream. And I had my TikTok stream shut down 10 minutes in. Right? Because all it takes is some Nazis reporting me. And the algorithm is designed to shut down live streams if a bunch of people report. So if a bunch of Nazis get together, you know, and the algorithm is already fairly fascist, so it's like, oh, this guy's talking about Ukraine, he's talking about Taiwan, right? And in fact, it did happen the moment I started talking about Taiwan. Somebody asked the question of, what do I think about the situation in Taiwan? And so I started to answer it, and then my live stream got cut. Like, I mean, we get sniped in terms of content. I don't know a solution. Like, and my feeling on it is actually that they're being kind of dim-witted about this, because what they're going to do if they chase communists off these platforms, then the communists are going to begin organizing locally, and it's something I should actually do. Like, if I wasn't doing this, what else could I do, right? And like, I just think that there is a little part of me that thinks that they are better off keeping people onto these on these social media platforms. Although they are losing control. Like, the ruling class is losing control of the narrative and has lost control of the narrative. I think that that got really, really obvious with the Ohio derailment story. That the Ohio derailment story was supposed to get buried, and if it hadn't have been for social media, and if it hadn't been for TikTok specifically, if it hadn't been for TikTok, the Ohio derailment would have been swept under the rug. no one would have known about it. And when the Ohio derailment, and how do I know that's true, by the way? It's because the United States has experienced hundreds of those kinds of derailments. Like, those sorts of derailments are happening all the time. It's just, for whatever reason, the Ohio derailment really penetrated the TikTok algorithm and people started really talking about it. And I do think it's because of the dramatic nature of the explosion that followed. That it was very dramatic, even in terms of a derailment. And since then, I've been basically seeing a derailment story every week now. That there are people who are obviously like, another derailment, another derailment, another derailment. But it's exactly like school shootings now. That another school shooting, another school shooting, another school shooting. But the Ohio derailment obviously scared the shit out of the ruling class, because we were never supposed to know. We were never supposed to know. That story was never supposed to penetrate the consciousness of the people. That story was supposed to remain a secret. Or at least be something that only a small group of people, like a small group of communists, would complain about. But it broke and it became mainstream. Everybody knows about the Ohio derailment. Everybody who's paying any attention whatsoever knows about the Ohio derailment. That's a problem. It's a major, major threat. And it's no surprise that shortly thereafter, there's a big Congress meeting where they bring in the president of TikTok and grill him. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party of China? Will TikTok take over my algorithm? Will TikTok take over my Wi-Fi? Like, this is the kind of dumb shit that they were asking this guy because they're clueless idiots. Yeah, I agree with local organizing. I'm in Florida, though. Oh, just talking about Florida, dude. DeSantis. It's a hellscape socially. The importance of social media for major events like these is definitely imperative. Yeah, we would have no knowledge. Yeah, of Ohio or even the Ukraine situation. Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. And Ukraine is sticky for someone like me. Because I know for a fact, if I'm on TikTok, if I'm doing a TikTok stream and I start talking about Ukraine, then my numbers drop instantly. Like, I've literally had like 400 viewers, and in the space of about 5 minutes, I had 2 viewers. Like, they have obviously, like, if you say Ukraine, Putin, Donbass, any of that stuff, they obviously drop you in the algorithm. I have been threatened by YouTube that will demonetize your channel if you, quote unquote, spread disinformation about Ukraine. And Crenshaw looked like a Call of Duty character. You don't get more hysterical. Yeah. Well, and it's classic McCarthy shit, right? Like, they want to tie it all to the Communist Party so that they can do a communist purge. Like, I know that we all kind of scoff and roll our eyes because they passed a bill decrying the evils of socialism in America, right? That happened with the support of Democrats. They passed that, and we all kind of went, pfft. But that is being used as a justification to chase people off of these platforms. We all agreed as a people that socialism is an evil force in the world, and that the evils of socialism can't be taken. So you say that socialism is good, so we're got to get rid of you, right? That's something that's actually quite serious, and it's 100% happening. And Florida is especially bad because it's this terrible, terrible, terrible mixture where you have basically boomer retirees. So the most successful sociopaths in one spot, but then also you have the Gusanos, right? The people who fled from Cuba, and you've got this like kind of deadly cocktail of the most deranged people in the society, and then all of that gets really heightened because of the dramatic levels of poverty that exist in Florida, and that there's enough of a ruling class base of these rich, detached boomer types blended in with former slavers in Cuba that can maintain power and ensure that poverty is maximized, homelessness is maximized, the prison industrial complex is maximized, and that people like DeSantis become the governor. Like, it's really quite brutal. And like, when the water levels rise and wipe out Florida, I won't cry about it. I'll be more concerned about Cuba. Gotta code the language for Ukraine. I do hate this, though. They want to shut us up so they can pop control. Don't forget to mention the fascist old money youth who voted for DeSantis. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like my favorite part about those types of people is they literally basically just get they just get like the biggest handout ever from their parents, right? That their parents basically just give them this inheritance, and then they all act like they're the coolest person ever. Like they all act like oh, you just need to work harder, right? It's like literally they got jerked off by their parents, and they're sitting in front of you being like, you just need to work harder, you're just lazy. That's my favorite thing about these guys. And like that's the story of Ben Shapiro to a T, right? That like Ben Shapiro got jerked off by his parents and thinks he's the smartest guy ever when he's just this like deluded, detached fascist, and who has managed to surround himself by like literal Nazis. Like some of the people, like if you ever see these videos where Shapiro is sitting there with a cigar and they're all sitting around smoking cigars, because they're all children who didn't grow up, and they think that sitting around with cigars makes them look cool when it makes them look like idiots. Some of the people who are in the room are literally Nazis. Like Matt Walsh is a Nazi, right? Like he calls himself on his Twitter a theocratic fascist, right? I wonder if he still has done that, if he has ever removed that. Matt Walsh, Twitter. Yeah, right there. Theocratic fascist. And this guy has been permitted to talk to anybody and be in any room with anybody, calling himself a theocratic fascist. Like, hey Fabella, hey that guy, how you guys doing today? And like, when you just admit that you're a Nazi, right? When you just say you're a Nazi and people still tolerate your presence, and people platform you and you're taken seriously, and the first question, like when Matt Walsh goes on Joe Rogan's podcast, why is the first question not, so hey, you call yourself a theocratic fascist? What's that all about? And it's because Joe Rogan is fine with Nazis. Like, he's completely fine with Nazis. Because they don't bother him, right? Nazis are completely fine with liberals, right? Because liberals do what Nazis say. And liberals go along with Nazis. And cowards like Matt Walsh would never talk to someone like me, because the very first question I would ask him would be like, so hey, theocratic fascist, you're a Nazi, right? And it would be the only thing I would talk about with him, because I don't really care about his opinion about trans rights or any of that kind of stuff. He's a Nazi, right? And this whole what is a woman thing that Matt Walsh is spreading around is pretty obvious Nazism, right? Pretty clear-cut, straightforward Nazism, where he's arguing in bad faith and making bad faith arguments, and dim-witted people like Joe Rogan just let him do it, right? With no pushback whatsoever, because Joe Rogan's pro-Nazi, right? Pretty straightforward. And the reason why Joe Rogan gets away with being pro-Nazi is because the society itself is fairly pro-Nazi. Yeah, it's amazing who Shapiro and Zelensky associate with, also Rogan now. I'm a little bit on the fence still about Zelensky. I haven't decided. Like, Zelensky was elected on a platform of ending the Donbass war, and by all accounts made an attempt. He actually went to the front lines of the Donbass War, and he actually did tell the Nazis there to stop engaging in their war. I think the reality of the situation is that it flows back to what I always say about why you can't actually debate Nazis, and why this whole ridiculous idea that good speech beats bad speech that comes out of the mouth of guys like Rogan is childish, because Nazis don't debate, right? The only reason Nazis are talking to you is to recruit other Nazis, right? Is to point a finger at yourself and be like, hey, this is where the Nazis are. And so you're either recruiting or you're targeting, right? Oh, hey, the guy I'm talking to, that's the person we should be bombing right there, this guy, right? That's the only reason Nazis talk to anybody, is to recruit other Nazis. So when Matt Walsh talks to Joe Rogan, it's so that he can recruit other Nazis. But when Matt Walsh goes and talks to people who are against what Matt Walsh says, he does so that he can point at them and say, okay, fellow Nazis, these are the people we're targeting. And people genuinely don't think that that's the case. They actually think, like, no, Nazis can be reasoned with. No, they can't. That Nazis they use violence. That they speak in a language of violence. That the only reason they're talking to you is to target violence somewhere. And someone like Matt Walsh is a dangerous psychopath, fairly clearly. And you can take a look at what's going on across America in regards to the war against trans people to see that that's the case, fairly clearly, in a very black and white way. And Joe Rogan is part of that, right? Joe Rogan basically launched a crusade against trans people on his podcast, did not platform a single trans person, did not platform a single trans rights activist. And he is as guilty as the rest of them for the war on trans people that is going on right now. And it's extremely obvious that that's the case. And just because he's like, bro, dude, whoa, yeah, it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. Doesn't mean a goddamn thing. He's just as guilty. Like, he platformed a bunch of anti-trans people and didn't platform a single pro-trans voice. Like, pretty black and white as far as I'm concerned. And but in the case of Zelensky, like, Zelensky went down to the front line and said, okay, I'm the president. I was elected. Time to pull it back. And the Nazis told him to fuck off. And I think since that moment, Zelensky has basically been operating under the understanding that if he doesn't do what the Nazis say, he will be killed. And NATO doesn't care what he says. Like, NATO doesn't listen to him or give a shit about what he says. His own military doesn't listen to him or give a shit about what he says. That Zelensky, I think, is basically just a clown who has been captured, more or less. And I think some of the things that he has said, it can be used to show that he is probably further to the right than people thought. But I'm yet to see anything that makes me decisively go, oh, he is also a Nazi. I think more likely he's got a gun in his back. And he's basically told, do this or we're going to shoot you. And the only reason he hasn't already been shot is because he's playing ball. Is because he's doing what the Nazis say. And it's not like the Nazis are particularly secretive about it. It's not like they're sitting there, like, I'm not talking from a place of conspiracy where it's like, oh, well, obviously, and then we can see by this kind of, like, they say it out loud, that if Zelensky does this, we will kill him. Like, these are the things that they say in public for people to write down and publish. And so that's the position I think Zelensky finds himself in. And also on top of all of that, the Russians want Zelensky to be in power. Because NATO worked so hard to give Zelensky credibility that anything Zelensky signs off on is going to be seen as credible. So, like, if Zelensky signs a peace deal, it's not like the West can suddenly say, oh, Zelensky is such a terrible. He has weapons of mass destruction. He's torturing his own citizens. It's not like they can do that, right? We literally went through like a period of like a year where we were all like, Zelensky's a hero. What a overwhelming heroic person to face these odds. Like literally like the Zelensky front of Time magazine, right? Time Zelensky. Like, it's not just that they made him, like, the person of the year. They also made him look like a fucking... Like, look at this picture. Like, look at this fucking picture. So if Zelensky signs something, the American people will grumble, but they'll probably go along with it. Right? They'll probably just be like, okay, well, if Zelensky, hero of Ukraine, thinks that this is the case, you know... Yeah, he is like a comic book. They have built him up in this, and they've created a false image of who Zelensky is, because that's what America always does, right? That America doesn't exist in a real space, and create real narratives about what's really going on. That as far as the average American is concerned, Zelensky is a God King hero Jesus Christ manifest. So if he signs a document that says peace deal, even if it means they lose the Donbass, even if it means they concede everything to Russia, well, they're going to go along with it. And my favorite part about what's going to happen in Ukraine is that eventually a deal will be brokered. Like, it will happen eventually. And when it happens, America will declare victory. And Russia will get the Donbass, get Crimea, Ukraine will be carved up, probably become a series of provinces. It'll be demilitarized, widely demilitarized. Putin will basically get everything he wanted. The Russians will give everything they wanted. And America will declare victory. That's going to be the funniest part. That it will be a complete and total victory for Russia in every way that you can imagine. But the Americans will say that they won. Yeah, I sometimes forgot that caveat about Zelensky. He's not really in charge for sure, and we see it in terms of the Nazism in society, but others don't, sadly. Is that fear or ignorance? Both. But pretty much both. No one wants to believe, like... The only reason why this story, the Ukrainian war, penetrated into the consciousness of Americans in the first place is because it was white nations. Like, that was pretty clear right from the get. That if this was, I don't know, if this was India invading Pakistan, right, no one would give a shit. No one would give a shit at all. If this was, I don't know, Namibia invading their neighbor, nobody would give a shit. If this was Brazil invading Venezuela, like, nobody would really give a shit, right? But because it's Russia invading Ukraine, it's a war amongst white people on the European continent, then it's a fucking disaster. Like, high level, big crisis, oh my god, I gotta change my Facebook profile picture to the blue and yellow flag, all that kind of crazy dumb shit. Right? Like, it's that kind of a heightened level in the consciousness of and so, and like, we don't really care if we are funding far right groups in Iraq. Like, so who cares if we're funding essentially Islamic Nazis? Like, it doesn't matter, they're brown people. But funding Nazis, like, funding the obvious villain of the last 100 years, like, is there a larger villain that has ever been on the world stage other than Adolf Hitler? Like, Adolf Hitler is the villain of the piece. 1 second, guys. My dog is begging for water, and he needs water. Okay, buddy. Okay, Milo, dude. You gotta chill out. There's your water. Like, Adolf Hitler is the largest villain that has... Yeah, leave a like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles, donate. Even $1 would do it. I've got a Discord I've got that you get into if you donate $1. The Patreon's in the description. Please consider donating. Even $1 would help. Thank you. Like, Adolf Hitler is the biggest villain as far as the West is concerned, and the whole world really is concerned, of the last 100 years. And so the idea that we are funding Nazis, even though we literally fund Nazi groups all the time, or equivalent Nazi groups, like, we're just so stupid and ignorant that we don't know, and moreover, we don't care. Like, this is what's so funny about the Uyghur genocide narrative that's in China, is that the West is trying to peddle this Uyghur genocide narrative, and meanwhile, like, since when has America given a shit about Muslims at all? Like, since when does any American anywhere at any moment at any time give one fucking shit about a Muslim anywhere? Like, it's so embarrassing. But Americans certainly care about Nazis. And, like, we've got footage of plenty of Ukrainians doing the Nazi salute. We've got plenty of evidence, literal parades being done with the SS symbol. Like, we've got so much overwhelming evidence to show that a significant portion of Ukraine has gone full-blown Nazi. Like, to pretend like they haven't is sort of childish. And I'm to the point now where I say that by the end of this conflict, we'll be seeing the Nazi salute in Ukrainian parliament. We'll for sure be seeing the we'll for sure be seeing the Nazi salute in Ukrainian parliament. And it's because that's the nature of how this goes, right? Like, Nazis don't just stop being Nazis, right? They don't stop acting this way. They don't stop. That their goal is to have power, and their goal is to use violence as a tool in order to cleanse subhuman races. That this is, and they've been very upfront and open about the reality that that's what they're trying to achieve, and that's what they're trying to do. And Americans don't want to hear it, because if they did hear it, then they would have to acknowledge that we are funding that. Like, we have been, like, there is a really, really big reason why the BRICS organization and like all of this kind of stuff. No more, okay, buddy? You're just whining at me. No more. Stop it. There's a reason why the BRICS organization is gaining power so quickly right now. There's a reason why people like Saudi Arabia, why countries like Saudi Arabia, Brazil are pivoting hard towards China. There are reasons for it, and there's a lot of good economic reasons, but one of the big reasons why it's happening so rapidly right now is because the United States, Canada, and Europe are funding neo-Nazi organizations. That, like, when the West has gone into, like, the Middle East and destroyed that, and destroyed Libya and destroyed all these kinds of places, there was still always this kind of veneer and general idea of, like, bumbling stupidity, right? That the West always, like, the rest of the world could always look at the West and be like, yeah, it's imperialism, and yeah, they're doing it, but they're kind of doing it in a way that a dumb child would do it. They're just bumbling in. They're just trying to find the groups that like, they don't care about the history of Islam. They don't care about the history of these organizations. They don't understand or care to understand that these organizations that they're funding are basically Nazi organizations. Like, Americans don't really care about that. All they care about is just getting their objectives and getting power. And so the rest of the world looked at it and kind of had that sort of attitude. But now it's very, 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 very obvious to anyone with any amount of sense whatsoever that the West is a Nazi force. That we are the Nazis in the world. We are the Nazis on the world stage. We fund neo-Nazi organizations that we know are neo-Nazi. We work to integrate those neo-Nazi organizations into the fabric of the military and into the fabric of the electoral and political system in the country of Ukraine. That it is obviously the case. And so there's no excuse to be made. Like there's none of this like hand waving, like, oh well, they're just trying to go for power and they don't really care about Muslim nations and what and they don't know the history and all that kind of stuff. We know the fucking history of Nazism. Like we understand who Nazis are. We understand. Like when I was growing up, all of my heroes could just shoot Nazis. I played games where I was given a gun and I was told, just shoot Nazis. They're not people. Shoot Nazis. I played Wolfenstein. I played these games where I was just given permission to carte blanche kill a bunch of Nazis. I watched Indiana Jones just like shoot Nazis and we were all like, yeah. I saw comic books where Superman threw Nazis into space and shit. Where like the beacon of Americanism was just like ganking fucking Nazis. Like Nazis were not people. We understood that you were supposed to kill Nazis, right? We knew this. This was part of the ethos. And now here we are, as a people, funding Nazis. Basically taking money and giving them to Nazis and having those Nazis attack Russians. Like, the entire rest of the world has looked at this and is reeling from it. That they are, all of them, throwing their hands up going, oh, shit. Like, this is not some petty warlordism. This is not some just dumb, bumbling imperialism or even colonialism. This is Nazism. This is no longer just expansionism. This is no longer neoliberalism. This is no longer corporatism. This is no longer even fascism. This is Nazism. This is concentration camps. This is the rounding up of minority groups. This is calling the Chinese, the Indians, the Middle Easterners, the Africans, the South Americans, the Latinos, even the Russians, subhumans, and rounding them up in our societies and purging them. This is what this is. We have to isolate this. This must be isolated, and it's happening. And it's happening very fast. And what's the response from the Nazis, i.e. America? What's the response from the Nazis? War. Because we are Nazis. There's no reason to call us anything else. We aren't Americans. We aren't Westerners. We aren't Caucasians. We are Nazis. We fund Nazis. Our ethos is a Nazi ethos. We are electing Nazis. We are supporting Nazis. We are funding Nazis. We are spreading Nazism. We are Nazis. And the rest of the world is right to isolate us. And when we go to war with them, I hope we lose. For the sake of the world, I hope we lose. Because I don't want to live in a world ruled by Nazis. On that note, like, share, subscribe, hit the bells, hit the whistles, donate $1 if you've got it. Donate $1 if you've got it. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.